Test. That's louder now. That's why. If I lower these a little bit from the back, one on each. Let me higher these. I can higher this. I can higher this. Test. It's loud enough. Okay. You got the green light. You're good to go.
Okay, if folks could take a seat, take a load off your feet. If commissioners could take a seat.
Jennifer, can you hear us? Jennifer? Speaking? Test. Are you speaking? You're saying mute? I'm muted. Oh, mute it on her side, or where do you her? Not for the laptop. Hold it under. You know, like.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to start our recording. I think we're actually already streaming live. We will be on WebEx and on YouTube. Oh, there's no interaction.
Yeah.
As a reminder to all the panelists and public commenters, please speak directly into the microphone so that the people who are listening online can hear you. For today, I'd like to ask for you to respect the following guidelines. Please help us by stopping your comments immediately when your time ends. I really hate cutting people off and making their public comments, but I will do so that everyone's voice can be heard. Please make sure your comment relates to the subject matter of the item. Please remain respectful, most importantly, of each other and also of the forum. Any person who is engaging in conduct that's disruptive of the meeting, we will call your attention to it. If you're here in person, you'll be able to speak publicly from the podium. If you're joining via WebEx or the telephone, you can use the raise your hand function to join the queue. You can do this on WebEx by tapping the little hand icon during the item. If you're on the phone, please press *3. Once we call your phone number, you have to press *6 to accept the unmute request, but if you don't remember that, I'll remind you later on. We'll start with giving commenters 2 minutes today unless Chair Kakani determines otherwise. And if you want to submit your comment in writing, please send us an email to info@poc.lacounty.gov. We did receive some written comments for the meeting today. Those that we received before 5 o'clock yesterday have been distributed already to the commissioners. The rest will be distributed and will be posted publicly on the agenda. As I said, we're broadcasting on YouTube, but not engaging there. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook and Instagram at LA County POC for more information. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Me da muchísimo gusto ver la audiencia que tenemos en público hoy aquí en persona y le damos también una bienvenida a personas que están escuchando vía Webex. Le invitamos a participar en español si prefiere hacer eso. Usted puede proveer su propio traductor o yo le puedo traducir sus comentarios públicos. Si está escuchando la conferencia por teléfono y quiere hacer una pregunta, tiene que presionar *3 en su teléfono. Eso le pone en la línea para llamarles para su turno. Ya cuando le llamamos por su teléfono, tiene que marcar *6 y eso le abre el micrófono. Si está viendo la conferencia por YouTube, no vamos a leer chats ni se puede comunicar con nosotros a través de YouTube. I think that's it. Okay, well, I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Dolores Canales. Present. Commissioner Frankie Carrillo. Commissioner Sean Garcia-Lays.
Here.
Commissioner Ishay Jackson is on leave from the commission. Commissioner Sam Lewis. Commissioner Don Meredith.
Here.
Commissioner Eduardo Mundo. Here. Commissioner Diane Terry. And Chair Millie Kakani. Thank you. Chair Kakani, we have quorum. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you to our panelists and audience members for understanding us moving the time of the meeting around, and I will turn it over to Millie.
Thank you, Wendy. We're going to be merging family impact remarks, which are item number 3, and the approval of the minutes, which is item number 2. And we're going to begin today with item number 3, which are family impact remarks. Joining us today is Marlene Medina, mother of Brian Diaz, who tragically lost his life in May of this year while housed at Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall. Marlene, on behalf of the POC, as a human, as a mother, we extend our heartfelt condolences to you, your family, your friends. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and Brian's story. And I'm so sorry that it's taken this long for you to find a space to share a little bit about Brian and what you've lost with a larger group of folks who care about you and who care about Brian.
We're not going to do this the whole meeting, but I'm going to translate those remarks. Jennifer, I'm looking at you to tell me what I forget to say. Yeah. Se lo voy a traducir en palabras de Millie. Entonces, cuando digo yo, es Millie. Buenos días. Hoy estamos para abrir la reunión de la comisión que tiene el derecho y la autoridad de cambiar el Departamento de Libertad Condicional del Condado de Los Ángeles, y damos la bienvenida a Marlene, a la mamá de Brian Díaz. Estamos aquí para darle nuestro sentido pésame de parte de la comisión y para darle el espacio y darle el agradecimiento de que usted haya venido para presentar sus comentarios a este grupo grande. Le pedimos disculpas que ha pasado tanto tiempo sin que le podemos dar el espacio de presentar en frente de ese grupo. Did I forget anything, Jennifer? Gracias por compartir sus palabras y su historia.
Just so folks know, Javier Starring from Healing Dialogue and Action is going to introduce and kind of set the space for Marlene to share.
Thank you, Millie. And I think that you said it quite nicely with your intonation and your obvious emotion, because I know that this place has been a place where in different ways, people work. But right now, these first few minutes, I invite everybody to imagine that we're not here, right? Because that's not what today is about. Today is about a mom who lost her 18-year-old son. And November 9th, today, marks the 6-month anniversary. At Healing Dialogue in Action, a lot of my colleagues knew Brian, that worked inside there with them. And I can tell you that it's been such an honor and a privilege to accompany Marlene. And it saddens me to say that this is going to be the first opportunity that she has to be heard before any group that might represent, who was responsible for her son's care. The first step in healing is being allowed to tell our story and for people to receive it with compassion and empathy. Today is a special day because we all have an opportunity to help Marlene continue down her healing path. And I invite everybody to take these next few minutes as that. Because every time that we're a part of a circle, every time that we're a part of a community with intention to love and heal, our own capacity to love and heal others expands. So if you feel comfortable, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a minute. Today we're here to honor, to recognize, and to feel the beautiful spirit of Brian Diaz. A couple of days after his death, we were in the chapel with the young boys that were in the unit the same day that he died. And I asked the boys, what is it that you're going to miss the most about Brian? Every single one of them said his laughter, his joy. So feel that vitality of an 18-year-old. Feel Brian's laughter and joy. Brian passed away on May 9th, which is the day before Mother's Day in Mexico. Be here with Marlene during this difficult time. Commit to being a part of her healing journey. I'll ask you if you want to continue with your eyes closed as I ask my colleague Dino, who knew Brian, to come up and share with everybody the last poem that Brian wrote. He was part of the Inside Out Writers, and he wrote a poem. After Dino comes up and reads the poem, Marlene will come up. We'll read in Spanish, and then I'll translate it into English.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was actually fortunate to read this to the young men at Barry J. Nydorf. The only women I love are my mom and my wife. One is by blood, the other by our bond. But they both mean a lot to me If I could go back in time and relive my life, I wouldn't change anything because our memories overlook our negativity. I miss both these women so much that I would give up my life to spend a day with them right now. But until that day comes, it's telling me to get.
Buenas tardes. Gracias por haberme invitado y escucharme. Recuerdo cuando me enteré que estaba embarazada, tenía mi vida completamente estable. Mis amistades me aconsejaron que debía abortar, pues tenía un buen empleo y tenía una buena vida, ya que sería muy difícil tener este bebé porque sería mamá soltera, ya que el papá no me apoyó y desde el primer momento que lo supo, no quiso ser parte de nuestra vida. Para mí el aborto no era una opción. A pesar de lo difícil que sería, tomé la decisión de traer a Brian a esta vida, el cual disfruté mucho mi etapa de embarazo. Mi hijo Brian fue un niño muy feliz, cariñoso, buen hermano, adoraba a sus hermanos y fue un gran hijo. Brian fue el único nieto de mi mamá que la llamaba a México por teléfono para cantarle canciones en español y le hacía chistes como: abuelita, pronto haré abuela a mi mamá. Teníamos tantos planes a futuro, él tenía toda una vida por delante, la cual le arruinaron el 9 de mayo de este año, un día antes del Día de las Madres. Esa llamada fue el peor regalo que jamás una madre esperaría. El 9 de mayo de 2023 recibí una llamada del Centro Juvenil Barry J. en Silmar que mi hijo Brian había fallecido esa mañana. Me lo dijeron de la peor manera, cruel e inhumanamente, sin explicaciones. Solo fue una llamada, como si mi hijo no fuera importante. No explicaciones que hasta el día de hoy sigo esperando. Desde ese día ya han pasado 6 meses que hoy se cumplen. El departamento de Probation no se ha vuelto a comunicar conmigo, ni por respeto a mi dolor como madre. Me hubiese encantado que en los servicios fúnebres de mi hijo, alguna novia de Brian se acercara a mí y me dijera: señora, estoy embarazada de Brian. Pero desgraciadamente le quitaron su vida antes de que pudiera vivirla. Nos arrebataron la oportunidad de verlo realizarse como todo un hombre de bien. Me robaron la oportunidad de conocer mis nietos. Me robaron la oportunidad de poderlos cuidar y tenerlos entre mis brazos. Cuando me llamaron para decirme que lo habían arrestado, me sentí tranquila, confiada, de que estaba en buenas manos y a salvo de la calle. Donde se suponía que estaría protegido. Fue todo lo contrario. En solo 6 semanas de él haber llegado a Barry J. en Silmar, lo asesinaron. Por favor, necesito respuestas, necesito justicia. Porque no quiero que otro niño, su madre, toda su familia, sufran ni pasen lo que mi hijo, mi familia y yo estamos pasando. Quiero compartirles el último mensaje de texto que Brian me envió. I love you, Mom. Merry Christmas. Te amo, mami. Te Te extraño mucho, mam. Nunca fue mi intención hacerte sufrir y no escuchar tus consejos cuando me los dabas. Pero tú y yo siempre estaremos juntos, siempre saldremos adelante. Tú eres para mí todo. Te amo con todo mi corazón. Perdóname por todas las noches que te dejé sufriendo sin dormir. Siempre estaré aquí para ti, hasta nuestros últimos días. Siempre te protegeré, mami. Te amo con toda mi alma. Cuando nos peleamos y nos dijimos cosas feas, lloré mucho, porque de los dos papás que tuve, tú nunca me alejaste de tus brazos. Gracias por ser mi mamá y mi papá. Siempre seré tu baby, mami. ¿Y qué tengo a cambio de eso? El acta de defunción que me la entregaron ayer.
I'll read what she wrote. I remember when I found out I was pregnant. My life was completely stable. My friends advised me that I should get an abortion. Well, I had a good job and I had a good life, and it would be tough to have that baby because I would be a single mother since the father did not support me. And from the first moment he heard the news, he did not want any to be a part of our lives. But for me, abortion was not an option. As difficult as it would be, I decided to bring Brian into this life, which I really enjoyed during my pregnancy. My son Brian was a happy, loving child and a good brother. He adored his little brother, and he was a great son. Brian was my mother's only grandson, who called her on the phone to sing songs in Spanish. And he made jokes like, "Granny, I'll soon make my mom a grandmother." We had so many plans for the future. He had a whole life ahead of him, which was taken from him on May 9th, the day before Mother's Day. That call was the worst gift a mother could ever hope for. On May 9th, 2023, I received a call from Barry J. Juvenile Hall in Sylmar that my son Brian had died that morning. They told me in the worst way, cruelly and inhumanely. It was just a call without explanations, as if my son was unimportant. No explanations to this day. I am still waiting for answers. Today marks 6 months since that day. The probation department has not contacted me again, not even out of respect for my pain as a mother. I would have loved if at my son's funeral services, some girlfriend of Brian approached me and said, "I am pregnant with Brian." But unfortunately, his life was taken from me before he could live it. They robbed us of the opportunity to see him realize himself as a good man. They stole the opportunity to meet my grandchildren. They stole the opportunity to care for them and have them in my arms. When they called me to tell me he had been arrested, I felt calm, confident that he was in good hands and safe from the streets. He was somewhere where he was supposed to be protected. It was a complete opposite. Just 6 weeks of arriving at Barry J. Nidar Central in Sylmar, he was murdered. Please, I need answers. I need justice, because I do not want another child and his mother to suffer or go through what my son, my family, and I are going through. I want to share the last text message that my son Brian wrote to me. "I love you, Mom. Merry Christmas." "I love you, Mom. I miss you so much. Mom, It was never my intention to make you suffer and not listen to your advice when you gave it to me. But you and I, Mom, we will always be together. We will always get ahead. You are everything to me. I love you with all my heart. Forgive me for all the nights I left you suffering without sleeping. I will always be here for you until our very last years. I will always protect you, Mommy. I love you with all my life. When we fought and said ugly things to each other, I still loved you. I cried a lot because of the two parents I didn't have. You never took me away from your arms. Thank you for being my mom and my dad. I will always be your baby, Mommy. I want to ask another colleague of mine that also spent time and continues to spend time there with the young men at Barry J. Nidorf. Josh.
Good morning. Joshua Pinedo with Healing Dialogue. I started going into juvenile hall when I was 13 years old. Lasted until I was 17, probably 12 visits. About an hour and a half from here in Riverside County, I started going into juvenile hall, and I was already a drug addict. Raised by a dysfunctional mother and a drug dealer. If I had the opportunity to use drugs in juvenile hall, I would have took it. But it was never available. I never seen anybody use drugs in juvenile hall. I never had the chance. 2 years ago, I walked into Barry J, and I was in a state of shock. Kids were using drugs in the open. Staff were sitting there watching. And I looked around and I thought I was in bizarro world. How did we get to the point where this is normal? And every visit afterwards, we've seen the same things. Kids being poisoned, being given drugs. Nobody even cared. Everybody said this was going to happen. Probation, CBOs, everybody knew that this was going to happen right before Brian died. And I just ask everybody, how is this possible? My wife is a military veteran. In Abu Ghraib, they have better security than they do at Barry J. Juvenile Hall. It's ridiculous. I can't wrap my head around it. How do we protect our children? Who's responsible for Brian's death? These are the questions that we need answers for.
The first step towards healing is telling your story and having it heard. And the next step is for the people responsible of the harm to accept responsibility, to be held accountable, to want to make amends, to want to change so that the harm doesn't happen again. We don't have to prolong the pain of Marlene and her family. Probation, there's cameras, what happened that night. People know what it is. Just come to the table, be open. Allow Marlene's healing of journey and true justice to move forward. The reason Brian was at juvenile hall is so that he could have the opportunity to heal. I hope that the system takes this opportunity to do a little healing. Because Brian didn't have that chance.
Forgive me. Thank you again for being here. Thank you again for sharing Brian with all of us. Sorry doesn't feel like enough. I think at this time we're going to move to public comment. Wendy, do we have any written public comment or live public comments for item number 2?
Comparto con Millie mi más sentido pésame y gracias por estar aquí. I don't believe we had any written public comment on agenda item number 2. We have at least one person in the audience. If you'd like to make public comment, and please come up to the podium. If you are participating online, please use the raise your hand function or dial *3 on your phone, and we'll begin.
Hi, I'm Adriana Rochelle. Now, I was currently the Barry J. Nydorf advisor, now Los Padrinos, and I just wanted to read one of the letters of many. I sent out hundreds of letters, and this was the one I was particularly looking for. On April 7, 2023, I sent out a letter of noncompliance complaint in regards to the inhumane conditions our children are currently facing inside Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall. Today, I must include more state officials, more state legislators, and entire community up to notice of the negligence, dereliction of duty, failure, oversight, and improvidence that cost a young man his life. With nothing to offer except a statement or an apology, which is not enough to fill a void of a deceased son. A mother is currently spending her Mother's Day making preparations for a funeral of a man who didn't get an opportunity at life, a son. On behalf of the community and the role I play at Barry J, as parent advisor, I offer the family all my support, love, strength, heart, soul, and prayers to showcase that they're not alone. I won't have to go through this alone. They have a community standing behind them seeking the same answers. How could this happen? Who do we as a people point our finger to and say, you are responsible? A statement or an apology will bring back the life of this young man. What is the point of filing a noncompliance complaint of the illegal activity going on inside these juvenile halls due to systematic failure, flaws, carelessness, cruelty, inhumane captivities, laws broken by state officials, officers, and probation who can't uphold their own policies? I've been documenting my son's experiences and the conditions he's required to live in. We are asked to file complaints that remain unanswered. I extend these complaints to each one of your offices for documentation purposes, describing how my son, who was once a straight-A student, had not attended school for 5 months, how they are illegally violating these children's rights by not serving the disability or servicing any IEPs, how they canceling visits due to lack of staff, creating a more treacherous, alarming, and fatal environment. I can argue if my letters were taken serious about the perilous conditions our children are required to live in, then this young man would still be alive today. If the state board would stop giving probation extensions to comply with the
Adrina,
law,
I'm sorry to have
then
to
I
do
could
this.
argue that this man would be here today.
I would like to ask Adrina if you will, I can see you have that in writing, if you would submit the whole thing in writing, or you can also give public comment at the end of the meeting, but I'd
Okay.
like to see the whole thing, and I know the commissioners would as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room who'd like to make public comment? This is public comment on this item. It's family impact remarks.
First, I would like to say my heart goes out to the whole family, the family of Brian Diaz. I am a sister of a brother who passed away the same way. So for this woman and her family not to have no answers about who is responsible for who did this to her son is not okay. There's nothing, there's no sorry, and especially not to be contacted after something so horrific. He went into this place and under y'all protection, what it's supposed to be, and he lost his life and cannot come home to his mother. My heart truly goes out to you. I'm sorry, I wrote a whole public comment, but like my nerves is bad, so I'm really speaking from my heart right now. And I just would like to say that y'all fail us so much and y'all put so much on us. Y'all label us in these categories, y'all take us in, y'all do what y'all. I am also formerly incarcerated. I'm only 20 years old. I went to jail at 16 years old. So I know what y'all do and how y'all do it. So that's why I'm here to speak up and say something. Y'all fail a lot of us. Y'all put us in these situations and y'all don't give us no support, no assistance. Y'all just be trying to get us caught up for the rest of our lives. And a lot of my friends have been in jail since I can't even tell you how long. And there's other ways because I am proof that there is other ways. I've completely changed my life around and this boy couldn't go home and get a second chance. I messed up one time and never did it again. How could you say that that wasn't gonna happen to him? Y'all supposed to protect and serve. If it was your kid, you would be standing here too. That's all I gotta say. This lady deserves justice, answers, y'all apologies, and as far as the security and everything else go, if he was to did something to somebody else in there, y'all would have ran them cameras back and y'all would have made sure he was held accountable. So where's y'all accountability at? Y'all can run them cameras back. Y'all do it all the time. Y'all cover up stuff all the time. Thank you.
Zoe Rawson, Arts for Healing and Justice Network. My heart goes out to you, Marlene, and your family. It's impossible to state what's in your heart right now in 2 minutes. I do want it to be known that the logo for Youth Justice Reimagined is an art piece by Redden Kubas. And he also passed away in a county housing, a transitional housing, and no one has faced his mother. And no one has accounted for his passing. Every single young person in Los Padrinos could have a yes team, and every single person in this room that shows up for the mothers and the siblings and the families can be on that yes team and are showing up for those families in community. And when they do, hearts open, as Javier stated. But when a young person unburdens themselves, they step into their healing when open hearts connect with their heart. But when you tell a young person that it doesn't matter whether you're alive or dead, and when you treat a young person that it doesn't matter whether you're alive or dead, their heart constricts and their bodies are in full-on defense mode. They're at war. And that's what we see. So every young person inside the facility right now, as a reparation for all of the loss, so many grieving mothers, so many grieving brothers, so many grieving community members. For reparation, every young person deserves a yes team, with all of them having open hearts and sharing values that you may unburden yourself, and I will walk with you. I will not get rid of you. I will not leave you behind. I will not leave you for dead. That's your job, to make it happen. Please.
Thank you, Zoe. I don't see anyone else in the room, but we do have 2 speakers online. We're going to start with Aditi Shirakar. Aditi, if you could, if there's anyone else in the room, please make your way forward to the podium. You can speak. Aditi, can you unmute yourself and see if we can hear you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can begin.
The only word I can really think of right now is shame. We should all be feeling it because we failed this family, we failed Brian, we failed his mom. And everybody who's saying that we need answers, we know the answers. We know that we are housing young people in a facility that is so detrimental to their mental health, to their physical health, to their well-being, that is counter to every single thing that we know in the science about child development. And we are placing them in conditions that will have this as the result every time. As shocking as this is, it's not surprising to me, and it's not surprising to anybody who's been paying attention. We knew for months, we've known for years that these are the conditions that our young people live in, and not a single person with the power to change it has had the courage to use that power and to actually prioritize children. Instead, we've sat on our hands while we knew probation was not meeting their duties. We knew probation was not doing safety checks. We knew probation was creating an environment that made Brian's death inevitable. And all we can do now is sit on our hands and wait for the next time it happens, because not a single person with power is using it. Not a single person is actually standing up for the young people inside. We are all just saying flowery language and nobody is taking action. And I hope every single person feels just an incredible amount of shame right now.
Thank you, Aditi. I'm sorry to do this, but the gentleman in the back of the room, our friend here at St. Anne's, is asking, there is a red Avalon Touring that needs to be moved. If that's your car, can you please move it? It's license plate 8YRC. And then we'll go to Crystal Jones on the phone. Crystal, can we hear you?
For Crystal Clear Learning Foundation. From a mother to another mother, as a leader and an advocate. I'm in tears. I'm concerned. These kids are freely telling their social workers, probation officers, me, advocates, and different people their stories and the struggles, how they keep telling people the signs, but yet they're ignored in regards to the help that they need as a parent, as a youth, and as a person that's in detention in these different facilities. The urgency for you guys needing to close it is a whole nother concern. The biggest concern for everyone is these kids being killed or other supervision and care. These kids need to be treated as normal as possible. Yes, they made mistakes. Yes, they fall short. Yes, they have shortcomings. But it's our due diligence as a nation, as a state, as a probation officer leadership role to see that they get back in alignment and in an assignment for their normal activities. That's education. That's leadership for themselves, for the next one that might fall victim in their age group or range. To equip them so they could get back into their households and equip them with that to get back into our society and be a champion in overcoming barriers and obstacles. For you guys to set up and condemn us and stereotype us for our culture or different shortcomings is not okay. You guys have the funding and the necessities and the means to fix it, but you don't. You keep the same leaders in position to keep going the shenanigans, yet fixing what needs to be done in this system and in these facilities. It's unacceptable. It's not okay. You can't pay them enough money to bring back her son. You can't give her anybody even reached out to her to even give their deep heart concern or even empathy to this woman. You guys should feel ashamed. And when we want to help as leaders, you guys make up stories and programs to keep it in-house in the same programs versus letting some newcomers come in to be the change and lead change. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Kruti will end with you.
Try that. Deep breath in, deep breath out. If you're feeling rage inside, it's justified. Just want to give a lot of gratitude for everyone that made today possible. Thank you, Melin, for being here. Thank you, Probation Oversight Commission, for daring to allow this emotion into this room. I'm not sure what's next on the agenda. But please, let it be the voices of the commissioners that are saying something to acknowledge what was just shared. Otherwise, we do business as usual, 2 minutes, next, 2 minutes, next, 2 minutes, next, and we don't fucking get anywhere. It's 6 months, angelversary. I have some suggestions. Meet with the family, one-on-one, whatever that means, right? Family, whoever she wants to bring, POC, whoever you want to bring, with footage. Let her understand what happened. Let there be demands that the family has, 10 things that the POC can do to make sure this never happens again. Also want to suggest Adrina, the mother, the fearless warrior that was here earlier, to set up a meeting with her. It shouldn't be a letter after another letter, unresponded letters. Healing dialogue and action takes dialogue and action. I'm going to encourage the room to take another few deep breaths. Get your greatest creative thinking, because we're going to need to do this together, and it just started today. Peace and blessings.
Thank you, Kruti. We do have one more commenter online. I forgot the name. It's Ramona. Barajas. Ramona Barajas. We're going to unmute you. Oh, she's not there anymore? Okay.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it to the commissioners for comments, questions, reactions, and we'll start, if that's okay, we should start on the far end and make our way down. So Commissioner Mundo, Commissioner Terry. Is there someone next to you? Commissioner Canales? Oh, okay, Commissioner Canales.
Yes, thank you so much. First, I want to acknowledge everybody's presence here today, and I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank those that made public comment, and especially to the mother. I am also a mother. Yo también tengo un hijo que está encarcelado, ya tiene más de, oh, me olvida porque yo no estoy ganando más older. Pero él sí ganando más older. I don't know how to, you know what I'm trying to say, right? Like, it's hard for me to remember how old he is because I don't see myself getting older, only him. But, you know, yo sé que duele, pero at least él está viviendo. Está en la cárcel, pero todavía. Pero I'm so sorry. I don't mean to disrespect anybody with my Spanish. I'm just nervous. It's not going to get any better. It's not. I heard one comment about, like, you know, the security that we should have had at the camp, but I don't see that as the solution either. And then we want the video footage. Well, what if it's another youth that handed it to him? Do we want to see that youth get life when that youth didn't know what they were doing either? I mean, I understand we're looking for staff accountability, but, you know, there's so many things going through my head. But I just spent the weekend locked in Chowchilla State Prison for women, where they have the California model. And they're being tortured. They're suffering. They're being thrown on the ground with their heads split open. But it's the Norway model. So when I say, what are we going to do to fix it? How do we even begin to rely on the same systems that have caused so much harm? My son. Do you know what they're doing to my son? They made falsified documents that he's an informant. I mean, I have the ACLU helping me, so we're able to see that it's not true. But the same system that has him entombed is literally trying to have him killed. So how do we keep relying on these same systems? How do we keep telling the youth, don't do drugs? When it's these very environments that make you want to use drugs more. And I know because I did drugs in these institutions every day, all day, as much as possible. You could not tell me not to use them. Because if I had to be locked in a facility, I was going to do it my way. And I was going to block my pain, my guilt, my shame in the only way that I knew how. So there's still so many questions, even with today. But it's always the presentation. It's always the tears. It's always showing the trauma, even with the youth that had his leg bent back. What's happened to Oscar Cross? You know, there's still so many questions. And this is a very emotional day for all of us. And I just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I would have never have asked you to come forward because I would have been afraid to bring more trauma on you. So I really admire the support you have. And I pray they keep supporting you all the way through. But I see the crowd, and I know they are. I know that you've now been embraced in a forever family. Thanks.
Buenas tardes. Marlene, obviamente el pésame no es suficiente para expresarme en una forma justa por el pérdida de tu hijo. Me da pena, como comisario, que nuestro trabajo es enfocarnos en el trabajo del departamento para asegurarnos que están haciendo su trabajo correcto. Es nuestro deber. Y tengo muchas memorias donde hemos ido a la cárcel, los juveniles. Y yo con mis propios ojos vi que las condiciones estaban muy injustas y las condiciones estaban muy terribles para todos. Y me da pena decirte que, aunque dije, pues qué lástima, qué feo, qué tragedia, lo que yo pude hacer es regresar a esta mesa y recordarle a al departamento lo que está pasando. Ya después es su decisión que van a hacer de lo que hemos visto, pero nosotros no tenemos el poder de cambiar sus formas de pensar o sus formas de conducta. Podemos decirles, oye, estás haciendo algo mal, pero ya es decisión de ellos. Te hablo como padre, tengo un hijo, 10 años, acaba de cumplir 10 años. Aunque Brian tuvo 18 años de vida. Wow. Otra pesadilla, ¿no? Otra tragedia. Esperamos que pueda recibir el apoyo de la comunidad. Él dijo que, ¿cómo se llama su hijo? Lionel. Pero mi punto es que viendo las fotos de Brian, nunca lo vi en persona, no tuve el privilegio de conocerlo, pero viendo las fotos, se mira como un chavo muy lindo y muy buena gente, y sabiendo más de su vida y de forma que era, su forma de ser, pues obviamente qué lástima, ¿no? Pero pues de mi parte, yo soy uno de 9 y nuestras compañeros aquí que estamos aquí para escucharla. No sé si en lo personal lo que puedo hacer, pero como comisario, muchas gracias por venir y darnos sus fuertes palabras, porque sí fueron muy fuertes. Y me da mucha pena que este departamento no lo ha tomado en serio, y viendo que le acaban de entregar un papel, un cuerpo por un papel, no es justo.
Buenas tardes. That's my Spanish for the day. You have to translate for me, Javier. First of all, my deepest sympathies for the loss of Brian. I can't even fathom that. As a father, I can't imagine that heartbreak. Having said that, she's raised some very valid points that have come up here. So some of the questions I have is that this is an in custody death. So I'm not sure what agency is investigating, if it's LAPD or LA Sheriff's, number one. Number two is does the department have a liaison with whatever agency is investigating it? I'm going to presume that it's still an active investigation, because if somebody's supplying drugs into our facility and it results in a death, there is criminal culpability that goes with that, that needs to be followed up on. And so I'm good. Okay. I was going to rely on Javier. You're good, Javier. Thank you. It raises a lot of these questions. And so I know we have a new chief on board, and under his leadership, we have intercepted a lot of contraband coming into facilities and parties responsible. But there's still an issue there. But more importantly is the death notification. You know, I come from the law enforcement side of the house, and we do that in person. We don't do it by telephone. And I'm troubled and actually very saddened that somebody didn't take the time to personally notify you and be there for you at that time. You know, we have chaplains available that could have been with us to help you through this. And so, you know, like I said, new chief's on board. He's seen a lot of our policies are outdated, and I'm sure we'll follow up on that. But I'm going to make a motion at this time that the department provide the POC an update on what agency is conducting the in-custody death, what is the status of that investigation, and do we have a liaison to that? Those are critical issues. And also to take a look at how we make notifications, whether it be an injury or a death, to the families involved. So that's my motion.
Say it again, Commissioner Meredith.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, my motion is that the department provide us information on what is the primary agency investigating the custody death. Do we have a liaison with them? What is the status of that investigation? Because there is criminal culpability that goes with that. Along with that, I guess, though there are some government codes on it, I'd like to know if there was an internal investigation initiated, and if so, if there was a conclusion from it. And also a review on the policy on how we do death notifications or injury notifications. That help?
Second.
I knew you would.
I think Commissioner Carrillo seconded that motion. Go to a vote. Oh. Okay, and is there any discussion related to that motion? I'll start with Commissioner Mundo. Commissioner Terry. Commissioner Lewis. Commissioner Canales. Commissioner Carrillo.
Just to make sure, was there a timeline on that? I missed. No, I would, so it's been 6 months since the passing of Brian. I hope something has happened. If there's definitely something that can be shared at this point. I would be very disappointed if the department returns back with, we haven't done anything about the passing of Brian. So I would say 1 month.
You know, I'm wondering, and I don't know, so the lawyers might be able to answer, because isn't there something that when there is an in custody death, a tort claim has to be filed within 6 months? Is that true? Do you know? That's what I had heard about corrections. And so I'm just wondering if like this 6 months waiting period has something to do with any legal filings that could come up, and how we make it to where they have to tell, you know, the family in a more timely manner. But like I said, I'm not an attorney. So.
Yeah, generally a straight plan with them.
It's very interesting that they always wait.
If you could speak into the microphone so the public.
So I think we should make sure in the motion that, you know, that the information is provided within the 6 months period for if any legal action needs to be taken.
I believe it's already been 6 months.
Today was 6 months.
Yeah.
So I would just add 1 month timeline.
Perhaps we can agendize it also for the next Probation Oversight Commission meeting, because that will be in a month. Commissioner Garcia Lays, did you have any?
What I was going to say is appropriate for this motion, which is I did hear one clear request today of something that we can do and promise to do today, and that is that this commission is supposed to be the eyes and ears of the community in our facilities and in probation's work. And I heard that there are questions about what happened, and that makes it our job to at least answer those questions to the best of our ability. And I think this motion begins that. It certainly doesn't finish it, and it doesn't include an opportunity for dialogue with the family, which I heard clearly from Ms. Parekh is something we should be pursuing. And so I don't think that needs to be a part of the motion, but that we will do that. I also, I think you made it clear this is an ongoing investigation, so even our ability to be the eyes and ears may be limited. And so we were not going to have all of the answers. We are not going to be able to see all of the evidence that would help provide those answers. But we can certainly do better than has been done so far, and we can promise to do that.
There is so much that needs to be said that hasn't been said. And as I said at the beginning, like, I don't even know if this is right Spanish, like, lo siento no es suficiente. You know, going back to Commissioner Canales' comments, right? So often the system seeks to blame individuals for the circumstances that it creates. You know, young people aren't using at my son's school because their needs are met, right? They get to experience joy on a daily basis. They get to feel safe. And so what we've created inside of our carceral facilities are spaces that are the antithesis of that. They are places that breed trauma, that breed harm. And so we turn to things like drugs to make each day a little bit easier. It doesn't matter who brought them in. Fact of the matter is, this is like an age-old story, right? That people survive trauma in really harmful ways. Because so often our system just seeks to push people outside of the margins, push them off the grid, create spaces where we only prepare them for adult carceral facilities and a life of being isolated. To Zoe's point, we need different folks supporting these young people. I'm sure that there are good probation officers, but the system really makes it hard. And so we need folks who come at this from a place of healing, from a place of hope, from a place of love. Because that every time we walk into those facilities, it is so clear that those young people are losing a bit of themselves every single day. And it's so sad. It's so sad. And it's so not fair. In response to this motion, I think it's super important to know what's going on. I also think it's super important that it is an independent investigation. Whether it's the Office of the Inspector General, who I think is probably the most independent body doing investigations of this nature. I don't know what it looks like to like call upon them or include them or think about how they might fit into this motion to create something that resembles transparency. Because those walls and those facilities go so high. And I think our instinct is to label these young people as the problem. because we have no idea what goes on inside those walls. It's not okay. It's not okay to spend $500 million every year to just invest in like decades of trauma. So yeah, I don't know if it's like a friendly amendment to also add, I don't know if that's friendly. I don't know, to add for the OIG to potentially also be a part of this investigation.
Okay, I will amend that to include that at some point, because we've got the act investigation, so they may be limited in what they do. But the first opportunity that OIG has to join in that investigation oversight, that would be included in that motion. County Council's looking at me. Okay.
What do I do now?
No, I just need to read through it. And then I can.
Okay,
call it if you're ready.
that sounds right.
Okay, so in front of us, we have a motion made by Commissioner Meredith, seconded by Commissioner Carrillo. I think Commissioner Carrillo, I have to ask if you also agree to the addition of the Office of Inspector General? Yes?
I do.
Okay, so the motion is to request that the department, the probation department, provide the Probation Oversight Commission with a status update on the death of Brian Diaz, including information on which is the primary agency that is investigating this death, who or do we have a liaison with that agency? What is the status of the investigation? Has there been an internal investigation launched? And then adding in there the role of the Inspector General in participating in that investigation. Does that sound correct?
Correct.
So I will call the roll, and if you could please vote yes or no, or abstain. Yes. Oh, thank you. The death
protocol.
notification protocol. Thank you, Amra.
I thought that you had also included like any time a family needs to be notified, when it was
Right, I
use
think
of
that's what
force,
he's-
whether it
right.
was.
The notification protocol. Great, thank you. County Council has also advised we could ask if there's any further public comment on the motion, since the motion was not on the agenda. So if you would like to make public comment on this motion, please step forward or raise your hand on WebEx or dial *3 on your phone.
So glad you asked. Mic check, mic check. Thank you for asking. So we know that the culture of probation is, I think, the way that it was said, is cruel and inhumane. And we experienced humanity today. So just want to request that Healing Dialogues in Action, if they choose, be a part of the team that's figuring this stuff out. Because what you just did, which is what the county does, right, is policy over the people. This way it brings some humanity into the policy. So the right community partner, let me say that again, the right community partner that role models restorative justice, healing, humanity, dignity. Also, what does restorative justice look like? What happened in the last 6 months? What actions were taken or not taken? It's just something maybe for folks to think about and maybe put it in your plan for 6 months from now for a presentation to the community around what steps were taken, what steps were missteps, and what steps do you commit to take in the future? Thank you. So this is my lawyer, Brian, right here. I want to introduce you to Zoe. So she's also rightly naming that when footage is seen, right, because we have a accountability issue in this county, young people are held accountable far more than systems are held accountable. So when footage is seen, because we know some of the young people that are in the facility right now, right? Will they be held accountable for the death? So I know you have some wisdom to say how possibly to avoid more harm to young people
I'm
as folks
gonna,
are figuring things
I'm
out.
gonna stop your timer, Kruti, and start another timer for Zoe.
Okay, so when Kruti asks me to do something, I do it without knowing the how, honestly. So I don't know the how. I actually am going to lean into you all to make sure that there's protections, that no young person gets a criminal charge, that no young person gets a criminal charge through this investigation. I've filed lots of police complaints. It's totally superficial. They never turn the spotlight on themselves. I think I'm pretty sure we all know that. I hope we all know that. We'd be dealing with a very different system if there was structures of accountability. So I strongly encourage that there's multiple points of community involvement in this, and that it's completely transparent, and that no young person receives a criminal charge in relationship to this investigation. I don't know that you have the authority to do that, but I hold you to figure out how to be in dialogue with the community to ensure that that happens.
Ismail, do we have commenters online? Okay. You can go ahead.
My name is Justin Marks. My heart goes out to Brian Diaz's mother, Darlene. Thank you for Marlene, your strength, and for coming here today and sharing your words and your example with us. There is no response that y'all could give that I feel like would be enough. And a part of this entire forum, to me, only continues this idea that probation and this system needs to continue to exist. How many more young people will die in custody before we're talking about dismantling probation, before the purpose of this commission is to completely transfer the role of youth development in LA County to a more apt body, to a youth development department. LA County has spent more on stray dogs than they have on youth development, more on animal control than they have on youth development. And now we're seeing the establishment of a youth development department still being underfunded, still scratching our heads, wondering why we're using the same tools. So many folks on this panel and in the audience have shared around the fact that these conditions are going to produce this instance to happen again. So again, I ask, how many more? What more will it take? And why is it taking 6 months to reveal evidence if that's the main purpose of this body? Why is this motion coming 6 months later? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Shutan, and I just wanted to respond to a speaker two before me. We're all in here looking for accountability. We're all looking for what happened and why it happened. But it sounds like we only want accountability if it's an adult. We don't want to hold any minors accountable. If someone, through this investigation, it turns out that a minor had provided whatever killed Brian, then that minor should be held accountable as well. And I'm not sure maybe I misunderstood the statement, but it seems to me accountability goes all around. Whoever's responsible needs to be held accountable.
My name is Sir Bailey. I say thank you for coming and sharing the life of Brian Diaz with us and your pain. prayerfully it will transform not only here, but our world. Ta-Nehisi Coates shared in an interview, someone asked how many more young people in Gaza have to die before a change happens. And the person that he was asking couldn't answer. I'd hate for that to be the case here. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on us because the Lord has anointed us to proclaim good news to the poor at heart. He has sent us to bind up broken hearts, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of splendor. They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations. Free our futures. Let them build a better reality.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for being here in person. It's nice to see your face. Go ahead. Next.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Herminia Galvez. First and foremost, I just want to say my condolences to the family of Brian Diaz. Our hearts are mourning with you at this loss. I'm currently a substance abuse counselor. I'm also currently a street cred coordinator that works with the youth. I believe that everybody has made a lot of points here. What I wanted to bring is something that I felt that has been missing in the system. I'm formerly incarcerated as well, and I have been system impacted as a youth. And that's the reason why I also became a substance abuse counselor, to make a difference. I believe that in the probation department or in the detention centers, till everything else is resolved, to moving that to better solutions of finding solutions before incarceration and finding solutions with programs that could help our youth, whatever they're going through, whatever they're dealing, and the healing. I believe that also for now, you guys should, if you guys are going to do an investigation, alongside an investigation, also provide people, counselors, especially those that have past experience and that are empathetic to the kids, to knowing how they're feeling because they've been there and experienced firsthand addiction. So I believe that having people that have experience with this will help you also inside of the detention centers, and also, focus on not just that, but better supervision. If you guys have the lives of children under your hands for a specific time, that means that parents are still waiting for their children to come back home. So it should be a responsibility for you guys to see that there is more people being put there to actually help those. There shouldn't be no kid in a cell that is not being seen for a long time. Thank you for letting me speak.
Before you leave, will you please connect with my colleague, Dr. Sarah Gongora? She's waving over there. She's doing a project right now on substance use disorder treatment in the facilities, and I know she would like to talk to you. Thank you. Thomas?
How you doing? I'm Thomas Bell. As an officer, I just wanted to offer my condolences too. We were very hurt about what happened. It really hit us hard. There was nobody in there that had anything negative to say about your son. He was a good kid. We enjoyed him, and it hit us hard. And we want accountability too. And when this first happened, I remember coming to this meeting asking this commission for accountability for within yourselves. And nobody took us up on that. Because we told these guys long ago that this was going on. I've been coming to these meetings from day one. I've been coming since the prick meetings, telling them drugs are getting sent to this facility. Something is going to happen. We need tools. We need assistance. We need cooperation. and we were ignored. As officers, we were ignored. We gave them these heads up. And then when something happens, they look at us like we're the bad guys. Oh, we wasn't doing our jobs. We don't have enough people here. We told them this was going to happen. I'm just a line officer. I can't make rules. I can't go out there and say, oh, well, we're going to do this for security now. We're going to do that for security now. Oh, well, you need these tools. Here you go. The only thing I can do is, oh, you're taking this away now. Okay. Let me see what I can work with now. You're taking this away. You're taking that away. Everybody takes away. When something happens, you point at the people who had no tools to use. We need accountability. We do. But we need accountability with you guys as well. Who's willing to accept that?
Thank you. Before our next public commenter, just a reminder that this public comment is supposed to be connected to the motion around the investigation of Brian's death, something that resembles transparency and understanding of how families are notified when their young people are harmed. So we do have 2 agenda items related to Barry J specifically, and essentially the conditions and minimum standards that have not been met there, and related to contraband and access to contraband. Thank you.
First off, I want to say, we love you, Ryan. I'm gonna fight for you. My name's Julio. I'm with Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And what I want to bring today to this circle, to this building, meeting, I want to bring safe healing centers. Let me repeat that again. Safe healing centers. I'm a formerly incarcerated youth. And I recently came home. And I want to say that still to this day, I'm traumatized. I'm healing. I'm trying to heal. And I'm doing my best. But there's gunfire going inside within myself every day. Through everything that I had to go through, being system impacted. And it hurts. I gotta smile every day just to put up a front. But it really hurts. But I want to put out the self-healing centers where we could bring these youth to these healing centers where they need people like us who've been incarcerated, where we could help them out instead of going to these traumatizing places behind cages, being handcuffed, being cursed by staff. I remember my first day, like day 1, I was already cursed. They told me where I was going. You're going to the compound. That's where you're gonna go. It was traumatizing for me. And I did end up going. But we can stop that by making safe healing centers something new and bring it to the community and to help out our youth and stop this curse. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrew Gonzalez. Here on behalf of Brian Diaz and Marlene. But I also want to share a little experience that I went through. I was previously incarcerated as well, and I was also system impacted. It was my brother's that passed away birthday yesterday, so it's kind of hits home for me. I was incarcerated at the age of 15, and my whole experience in juvenile hall was I think it prolonged that trauma that I was already in. And I knew that I had consequences to face, you know. But when I got there, I realized that there was much more to just consequences. There was punishment there. Instead of getting there trying to correct my behavior, I was enabled to continue that lifestyle. Instead of people trying to sit down and help us out and talk to us and letting us know right from wrong, we were enabled. And I'm here speaking on behalf because I experienced both sides. And I would hate to just continue to see this system fail time after time after generation after generation. I never knew Brian, but I know what it's like to lose somebody, especially when you can influence things to change.
I feel as though, like I said earlier, when we are put in these type of situations, we're not given the resources or the tools to better ourselves. Y'all lock them up in these facilities. Y'all cancel school. Y'all cancel visits when y'all want to. Last minutes, y'all send parents home for tights, jeans, whatever. I've seen it happen myself. And I just don't understand if y'all make it so hard for these parents to even see their kids. Where what time and where is it coming from? If it's not coming from y'all, that's just how I feel. If it's not coming from y'all, if y'all hassling these parents so much, where is it coming from? And then the fact that you had said, if it came from another youth, what does it look like to hold that youth accountable? That you've been in there for how long? They not touching no sunlight, no daylight, no none of that. They not going out and getting it and bringing it back in. Where is it stemming from? Of course, one person get it, they all gonna get it. And if you're canceling school, them kids is in there depressed. My brother was in there losing his mind. I'm losing my mind out here just trying to process, what he going through. And I can't even fathom, it's so I know that those kids in there, like I said, y'all not helping them with nothing, no therapy. I've been getting therapy since literally I've been on my journey with getting my life together since 2019. It's 2023. I'm 20 now. I've been in therapy ever since then to fix myself, my trauma that I had buried inside that stemmed into, what I did and, everything about me, everything that we come from. We come from trauma. We come from harm. We get sent to these places and then y'all put more harm, more trauma and just everything on us. Y'all don't help us. And then y'all are quick to keep the blame, keep the cycle going of you're not nothing, you're gonna be nothing type situation when y'all are supposed to be the ones to help us. Y'all been here, y'all supposed to know this stuff to, reinforce us, help us grow. We are children, is what y'all keep saying. We are youth. Y'all are grown adults, with most of y'all having children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Stacy Ford, Local 685. I I want to express my condolence to the family. The day your son died, I was there at the facility, and we care about the young people that we serve. I just want you to know that we care about them. We care about all of them. On that day, the staff was so emotional, we had to bring in outside peer support. And we had to bring in county assistance just to maintain, to be there for the staff because they were so emotional, distraught behind what happened to your son. But I want you to know, I am so sorry that happened to your son. And as peace officers in the probation department, we do care about our young people. I pray that the Lord will guide you through this process and give you the answers that you are seeking. On a second note to this commission, as Brother Bell elegantly stated, we've come to you. We've come to the Board of Supervisors, and we've told you our situation. And you all table the things that we do as abuse. You don't want us to search, or if we do search, you want us to search a certain kind of way. You don't want us to hurt the young people's feelings. We came to you, and you guys shut us down.
Okay, I think that's the end of our public comment. So you want me to? Yes.
Okay, so we are voting on Commissioner Meredith's motion, seconded by Commissioner Carrillo, about the department providing status at our next meeting or within a month on the information on the primary agency investigating whether or not probation has a liaison and who that is with the primary agency, the status of the investigation, and the status of the internal investigation, including incorporating the OIG into that investigation, and the notification protocol for deaths and other incidents similar to that. Commissioner Lewis has a comment.
Ms. Medina, my deepest sympathies. I was incarcerated for 24 years. And until I came home, I didn't know how much it scared my mom when she couldn't communicate with me. And we talked. She's very sick right now, but we talked. And she told me how much she worried that I wouldn't come home. This commission did put out that if something didn't change, that something like this would happen. We said it loud. That will give you no comfort. For me, the way I operate, I believe for this commission, and for some of the HDA brothers that go inside, there is a lot of change going on. And a lot of the momentum is because of Brian. When I say a lot of change, I want to give you some examples. A lot of people don't know this, but there was both staff and a youth's family that are facing prosecution. Staff has been walked off. I can't let, like, I know this stuff because I'm in there often. And I might get in trouble for saying this, but I'm gonna say it because I think you need to know this. There are people that are being held accountable. It's not public information, but because I go in there so often, I walk in on situations. The other thing is there's a lot more transparency. And the reason why is because you have credible messengers in there, formerly incarcerated people, some of them in this audience, some of them from HDA, some of them from ARC that are in there every single day. There are 10 in there right now today that I know of that are in there from 11 in the morning to 7 in the evening. And they report out everything. And anything that happens that is harmful, it's immediately reported to probation and the probation commission. And then it goes to the board of supervisors. And sometimes it goes directly to the board of supervisors. We are in the process of creating a drug treatment unit that will be staffed by DMH, Department of Mental Health, outside therapists, and credible messengers that are trained in drug and alcohol counseling. The number of programs that are now in Barry J have at least quadrupled. That does, again, none of this takes away the pain. But because of Brian, all of these things are changing much more rapidly. Right now, there are also talks with DMH, Department of Mental Health, to have therapists come in that are more culturally sensitive to both the Black and Latino youth that are the majority in there that come out of our communities. And so those are things that are happening right now. The one thing that is not happening, or that has not happened, that we did call for was a scanner. Like the airport, when you walk in the airport, we haven't gotten those up yet, but we've pushed for those. It's been before the board of supervisors, and I think we should push for that because it's been months since it's happened, since we called for it. A scanner will decrease even more. As I said, I go into the halls, Barry J, quite often. Of late, the last 4 weeks that I've been in there, most of the young people that I've been in contact with are clear-eyed. Just as Josh talked about going in and seeing kids high, I've been going into juvenile hall since 2014, since I came home from prison. I had never seen it as bad as it was in the past 2 years. It's changed, at least Barry J has changed. Much smaller number of kids there or young people there, a lot more programming, and now there are a lot of things that are being put in place. The one thing that I don't want to happen is we're all pointing fingers at each other and pointing at the system. If we empty this building out right now and made this a park inside or a childcare system, it's a building. Systems are made up of human beings. Systems are not things that we can just, a system is made up of the people that run it. And so what we need to do is not relax on those things and make sure that we continue to push forward. To point fingers and accuse it, that's not gonna find a solution. It doesn't. To know what's going on inside and to have that transparency and to see it and to be part of it, That creates momentum and that creates change. I don't want to argue with anyone here. I don't want to point fingers. What I do want to see is every one of the young people that are inside treated with compassion, respect, while being held accountable until they learn to hold themselves accountable. Because what we often do with this carceral system, and I spoke about this morning in court, true accountability does not come from a system putting you in a jail cell or in cuffs. True accountability comes from within the individual. No one can hold me accountable. It doesn't change me. Only I can hold myself accountable. You can lock me away. In order to do that, we have to work together. To attack each other and the point fingers, it doesn't help Brian's mom. It doesn't help Miss Medina. I want you to know that I've committed my life to doing this since I've returned from prison. And I promise you, every day we'll continue to push to continue to change the system into one that the way that we should see it. And every one of the men and women that go in from HDA, Young Women's Freedom Center, ARC, when we see things, we act on them inside. And someone said earlier, there are a lot of probation staff that do genuinely care for these kids. I saw probation staff crying. Some took sick leave because it was too much for them. But in all systems or in all organizations, you'll never have 100% good people. That's just a fact of life. But what I want you to know is that there are people that are pushing, that continue to push, and that want to see change so that this never, ever happens again. My hope is one day we don't need systems like this. Right now is what we have and what we need to do as a community, whether it's the POC, probation, DYD, or any county agency. We need to work together instead of pointing fingers and saying, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. There are other jurisdictions that don't use pepper spray. How can they do it and we can't? If they can do it, we can do it. It's not about pointing fingers of what we took away or what you don't have. It's how do we do this and make sure that our young people are safe and protected. And I want you to know that we're committed to doing that. I'm 100% committed to doing that until the Lord stops giving me breath in my lungs. Again, I want to offer you my deepest condolences. And just so you know, Javier, his team, my team, we're in there together trying to make sure that this never happens again.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote. Everybody remembers what we're voting on? Commissioner Canales? Commissioner Carrillo?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia Leyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis? Commissioner Meredith? Commissioner Mundo?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
And Chair Kokani.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously 8-0. And then we can also take a vote on the minutes, but I think we need a motion for
Okay.
that.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting on September 28th, 2023. Someone could second that?
Seconded.
We actually already took public comment on it. Okay. So I think you do a voice vote
Okay,
on that.
if we could do a voice vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. All right, that passes. Okay, just interests of taking care of ourselves, we'll take a quick, very quick 5-minute break. Just if you need to use the restroom, stretch, take a breath, hug each other, care for one another, and then we will be back here to continue the agenda. Before we go, I just again wanted to thank you, Marlene, for being here, for being so vulnerable, for being so honest, for being so brave and holding all of us accountable. These flowers feel like they fall so short, but we included some blue because we know they're Brian's favorite color. Many of us are wearing blue today in support of Brian, but thank you so Hello? Okay, it's been 5 minutes. So if folks could take a seat, if our commissioners could also take a seat, it would be great to get started so that we could get out of here on time and not be stuck in LA traffic. Nobody cares. Okay, commissioners, if you could take a seat. Folks in the audience, if you could take a seat. Okay, we're gonna get started. Like, do I just call people's names out?
Where's can we have Deanna Carlisle and Eric Strong and Albert Bañuelos come up to the front, please?
Okay, and if everybody else in the audience could take a seat, that would be much appreciated.
For those of you in the virtual audience, we have Albert Bañuelos and Eric Strong and Deanna Carlisle joining us at the table on behalf of probation. Also, for the commissioners, Robert Smythe is here in the audience if you have questions for him later.
Okay. I think we're missing Commissioner Lewis and Commissioner Canales. Okay. Get started? Okay. Just wanted to share that as it relates to 6, as it relates to agenda item number 6, we are going to table that agenda item. The Probation Oversight Commission is still completing their report, and in order to give it the time that it deserves, which we probably don't have today, we're going to table it for our next Probation Oversight Commission meeting. And that agenda item, again, is discuss and take appropriate action on continued efforts to reduce overcrowding at LP and other LA County probation facilities through ensuring least restrictive placements and girls decarceration. And again, the POC will present a report on demographic snapshot data of the youth who are incarcerated. That will happen at our December meeting. Okay. With that, we're going to move to agenda item 4, which is, yes, agenda item 4, which is regarding the probation department's progress on reaching compliance for areas of non-compliance with Title 15 and Title 24, according to recent California Board of State and Community Corrections inspections, and the progress on implementing the corrective action plans. We are pleased to have Deputy Chief Sheila Williams here to discuss this issue. Oh, I'm sorry. I think Deputy Chief Williams had to leave. I'm sorry, so who's going to be presenting on that? Is it just Mr. Banuelos? Okay. Okay. So we have Mr. Banuelos from Los Padrinos and Ms. Carlisle to report on staffing issues. Yeah, and then we're going to take some questions from commissioners after their remarks. Sorry. I'm going to stop right there. Okay, so why don't we start with Mr. Banuelos and the issues related to compliance at Los Padrinos with minimum standards connected to the corrective action plan. So,
Sure. I don't know if there was any direct questions to get started, but I can kind of give you an overview, or if that would be okay.
I think it makes sense to start with an overview, and then I imagine there will be specific questions from the commissioners.
Fantastic. Okay. Um, We've currently initiated a new unit at Los Padrinos, and that unit is a quality control unit. That is the on-site quality assurance or control that is specifically assigned to the BSCC cap and making sure that we're making progress in implementing any new policy, any new procedure that will help us move towards successfully completing this cap. We've assigned a brand new manager who is immensely familiar with the operation, which gives them a great advantage because they're able to go in and ensure that the policies that we have in place are being completed and in place. And so therefore, I believe that that mechanism will help us move through this process much more efficiently. The department also has put together an offsite compliance team as an additional layer to ensure that we are meeting those requirements. We have new recruits coming in. I have a new class, I believe is their first week. They're being trained on all of the requirements. We're also looking into expanding our video coverage room that I could have 2, if not 3 staff continuously man those monitors for looking for room confinement, looking for any movement that may raise a flag and how we need to ensure that the requirement is getting completed. So we're looking at different things to get them moving forward, but currently in place today is the new quality control unit that is going to oversee us meeting those requirements.
Okay, do I need to go to public comment or do we go to remarks first? Okay. All right, so obviously related to compliance is the issue of staffing. So perhaps Ms. Carlisle, if you could give us an update on callouts, progress, lack thereof, that would be great.
So when I presented a couple months back, I provided leave data, number of employees on continuous leaves, intermittent leaves, et cetera. And so we have updated those numbers for your review. I don't know if anyone had questions about any of those updates that you want me to address. I will bring your attention that the number of employees on continuous leave has dropped. Part of that drop, though, is because we are trying to accommodate all staff at the juvenile hall, whether they're light duty or full duty, so that we have adequate staffing. That poses some challenges, and we're going to continue to review all of that. But so the numbers of employees on continuous leaves has dropped a bit. But the flip side to that is if you're there and you have an intermittent leave, that goes up. So the number for intermittent leaves has sort of gone up. Number of employees on modified duty department-wide, we're very focused on the modified duty, which is 2 components: permanent work restrictions, pending reassignment, meaning if I can no longer do my job because of some work restriction or functional limitation, and it's a permanent thing, then I could be reassigned to another job if I can't do that. So we have successfully been able to drop those numbers and get those people reassigned. We're working very diligently on all of these. Temporary modified light duty, again, those numbers have dropped a bit as well. So going through, we have the numbers specifically for employees on continuous leaves, and it's updated through October. So the percentage of department total of employees on continuous leaves out of the juvenile halls, and we are including SYTF, Barry J in that, is about 46%. Number of staff on intermittent leaves through our institutions, percentage of department total is about 31%. The number of employees with permanent work restrictions on modified duty pending a permanent reassignment to a different position is 28% of the department total. And then the number of employees on temporary or modified light duty, the percentage of the department total is 80% out of that one area. So that's obviously something that we're putting a lot of focus and attention on, how best to manage that, how best to have staffing, because unfortunately with light duty staffing, there are challenges and they, because of particular restrictions, they can't always provide the direct supervision, which is what we really need. Now, we don't currently have a system-wide process to track overall call-outs for the department. We have a special call-out system that we developed and rolled out in January of this year. Sorry, I'm fighting a cold. But the call-out system is used by both the staff who are assigned to the institutions as well as the field staff who are being deployed to the institutions. So if I'm a field staff and I'm expected to work tonight and I can't go, then I would use the call-out system as well. So we added in the call-outs from Barry J through October 29th, and those numbers are cited. The call-outs from LP through October 29th, and those numbers are cited as well. Just a note, because we prepared for the meeting and it was delayed, so those numbers are through the 29th, but they're pretty reflective of the overall. So the call-out averages, as you can see, are provided to the very right of the column. I think you have those. Did anybody have questions about those?
I'm going to start with Commissioner Mundo on the far right. If there are any questions either for Mr. Banuelos or for Ms. Carlisle.
Yeah, I just have 3 questions for Ms. Carlisle. Can you define continuous leave and intermittent leaves?
Yes, absolutely. So continuous leave means exactly what it sounds like. I'm off from a date to, for a particular date to another date, and I'm off for that whole time. So for example, if someone is off due to illness, surgery, and they're completely offline, that's a continuous leave. They return whenever their note says that they're deemed to return to work. Now, intermittent leave, that's something where I can tell you as a mother, I used it for one of my sons who tried to do something a little more adventurous than he should have, and he was injured. And so I requested intermittent leave under FMLA to care for him, and it wasn't continuous. So, you know, I would take a day here and then maybe take him to a doctor on Friday, and then I would work, you know, a couple days a week. So there are a number of reasons for people to have intermittent leave, either for themselves, for care of a family member. But it means that sometimes they're at work and sometimes they're not. One of the challenges with intermittent leave as opposed to continuous leave, if you know I'm going to be gone for 4 months, you can plan behind that. But if you don't know day to day whether I'm going to be able to show up and I have intermittent leave on file, it can be very challenging, obviously, to staff. And we do have considerable challenges in managing that, because generally, if someone has intermittent leave, we don't get advance notice.
So, and my last question is call outs. When I hear that, is it staff that are actually assigned to the juvenile hall that are calling out and those are the numbers you're tracking? Or is it staff, or does it also include staff that are required to do certain days from their regular job, their regular assignment, and perhaps call out the day that they're assigned to go to the hall?
So the call out system tracks both, because we do require anyone who's deployed, which is the ones who come in 1 or 2 times a week. Anyone who's deployed needs to use that system too, because that's how the juvenile hall is checking their staffing numbers. So it's in real time. So the numbers that you reflect both the staff who are assigned there on a regular basis, as well as the field staff who are deployed there.
Which percentage is higher?
Which percentage?
Which
Oh,
one
of
has a
call-outs?
higher call out percentage?
You
The
know-
permanent staff or the deploying staff?
We haven't tracked to that level. That's something that we can see if we can back into. We can look into that and see if we can provide you some numbers next month.
Well,
But
I was just,
I
I
don't
was just
have-
curious. but
Yeah, I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Thank you.
Of course.
Commissioner Terry?
Just a quick question. How often do you run this data? And then what do you do with it once you get it? So for instance, seeing the trends, seeing the numbers, how does probation follow up?
So we are constantly engaged in trying to manage our leave. We're partnered with DHR Central. So I represent HR for the probation department. I oversee all of the functions in probation, but there's a central county HR as well. They're partnered with us and they're assisting us with all of our leave management. We're trying to make sure that, for example, the people who are awaiting reassignment, some of those people are still sitting on sworn items, right? But they're pending a reassignment to a non-sworn item. We want to free those up as soon as we can so that we can hire someone behind them who can then go in and do the full scope and responsibilities. So we're very focused on all of our leave management, making sure that it's compliant with the law, of course, but making sure that we're on top of it. We're reaching out to doctors. We're talking about modified duty options. We're doing whatever we can with our third-party administrator, Sedgwick, to bring people back to work and make sure, you know, that we're supporting all of that. So there are a number of strategies when it comes to leave management that we're trying to engage in, and we have a lot of support from the county on that as well.
And is there anything that the department has done just to kind of address the morale and issues that have gone on because of the low staffing and excessive callouts?
I do know that from a morale perspective, yes, there have been efforts made by the executive team, more communication, more discussion about what's happening and when, because, you know, when people feel like they know what's going on, they're a little more engaged, right? There's also, and I can't really speak to this because I wasn't part of this project, but there's also been some consultants that were brought on by the county and DHR to look at things like morale and improving, you know, the employee experience. I do oversee wellness and peer support. We've done some things with peer support, partnering with other agencies and bringing their peer support in to let our staff know that, you know, we support their wellness, things like that. One of the other things we're doing, since we were talking about accountability earlier, we also have an attendance project. And so in the information that I provided you, I also provided an overview of the attendance project as it relates to these callouts. So I'll just read quickly. In May of 2022, working with the County Department of HR, we implemented a proactive approach to monitoring the systemic absenteeism issue within the institutions. Basically, what we did is the institution's supervisors were overwhelmed with daily supervision. And they expressed to us time and time again, they weren't able to go back and look at, you know, call out data. At that time, call out data was manual. There was a log, people would call in on a phone, talk to an OD, they would track it, and then maybe later someone would look at it. What we did as part of this attendance project is we took proactive action, and our performance management unit then took all of those handwritten logs and started to review to see if there was there were signs of abuse. So we have procedures and policy about how often someone should be out that's reasonable, you know, is it once a month, is it twice a month? Are people saying that I have FMLA and I'm calling out, but really they're not approved for FMLA? So wherever we see problems with excessive absenteeism, this attendance project, we were trying to lean in and then address that and hold people accountable. So what we have done since the project started, we've issued 753 actions. Of the 753 actions, 233 of those are formal actions. So formal actions is things like a letter of reprimand, suspension. We even had a couple dismissals because people have had a history of attendance problems and they were sort of taking advantage of the situation where supervisors were too busy to hold them accountable and they were grossly abusing the system. So we've had a couple of terminations, but the majority of our actions, as you can see, 520 are notices, and the notice is a notice of expectation. And that's exactly what it's a letter saying, hey, we have eyes on. We see what's happening. Let us just remind you, this is a quid pro quo relationship, We pay you, we give you benefits, and we expect you to show up and do your work. And so those notices of expectation have been pretty effective in putting people on notice that A, we're looking at what's happening, and B, we're going to hold you accountable. We also issued about 134 to field staff on deployment related to their attendance, because again, the impact there is just as impactful as the staff who are assigned there. If you're supposed to show up on a Tuesday night for the PM shift and you don't, and you call out, it's the same to Albert as if it's his own staff. So altogether over 800 different types of notices and formal actions have been delivered since we started this project.
Commissioner Lewis? I'm sorry, Commissioner Terry, did you have any follow-up? Okay. Commissioner Lewis? No. Commissioner Canales? Commissioner Carrillo?
Yes, thank you. On the same conversation of HR, and really picking up where you left off about, putting people on notice, has there been a number calculated about the waste in taxpayers' money that has been calculated to give us a good indication about how this impacts county budgets? Maybe I'll stop there.
No, but I will say that there have been two situations that we became aware of where it looks like potential for fraud. And as is the county requirement, we've reported them to the County Office of Investigation, the OCI. So, we haven't looked at overall, but we're aware, and we're trying to get in at the bottom and get people doing what they're supposed to do. But I'll defer to my boss, Robert.
Hi, boss.
Yeah, my name is Robert Smythe, and I'm the money guy, I guess, for the department. We're budgeted for salaries and benefits, so it doesn't cost anything extra. There's no what we call incremental costs. There's no incremental cost for somebody calling out. It just shifts the line item, so to speak, from straight salary to their sick time benefits, which they're entitled to. The key issue is where they actually are calling out sick. And for example, as Ms. Carlisle's explained, if they call out with a pattern like every Friday or every Saturday, or there's a Super Bowl or something like that. So we look for patterns as well. And if their call outs exceed county standards, so the number of call outs per week or per month. So no extra dollars involved.
Thank you, sir. So maybe here's a tougher question that maybe, at least I want to know. What can be done in the charter or maybe internal policies to excuse these people from employment of the county?
So that's part of the project is holding people accountable. In all public sector, we look at corrective action as progressive. So, when I'm training managers on how to hold staff accountable, I go by the rule of three. So if Albert's absent 3 times and he exceeded, we're going to have a conversation on that 3rd time. If that conversation doesn't work, or that method of discussion or that notice of expectation doesn't work, we're going to continue monitoring. If we see, again, a pattern, we're going to go to the next level of corrective action, and we're going to continue doing that until, as I said, a couple of people did help themselves to other employment through this process. So, the critical thing is in being a public servant, a county employee, we got to show up. We can work with people who are injured, who are trying to heal. We have systems, we have processes for that. It's a good thing. FMLA is a good thing when people need it and they're not abusing it. But we're very mindful, and we're really trying to watch and monitor that all use of sick time, attendance, all of that is within the legal parameters and the county expectations.
Thank you for doing that. I'll wrap up this specific topic in memory of, I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but Supervisor, is it Guinness? So I'm, obviously it's a very somber meeting, but thinking about the supervisor and knowing some of the factors about the stresses that he had as a human being, as an employee of the county. I don't know what was the reasons of his passing, but understanding and interacting with him and him being so involved and dedicated to the work and showing up and at times being by himself in a very, to some degree hostile environment with the specific population that can be very demanding. I wonder if these employees who are not calling in or who are not showing up and are not, being a team player in the situation where like Guinness could have had a great support there at that time. I wonder if they're being aware of the impact of them not coming to work. So I know this is not a direct question for HR, but I just think overall, these terrible tragedies that we're hearing about on both sides, where we can see the trickle effect and we can trace it back to just people not doing their part. So that's more of a statement than a comment. But I will shift over to Los Padrinos. And I just want a little bit more clarification on the quality control unit. Where exactly is it? Has it been like, is it like an A and B, M&N? Where exactly in the facility?
The unit itself is not a building or a unit physically. It's more of a team that got put together under this new title of quality control. But they'll be working with every single individual unit, director. I've also placed a couple of our assistant directors underneath a few divisions to help again ensure as their primary function now to simply focus on BSCC and compliance. So they'll be working closely with them as well.
Thank you for doing that. And you mentioned also new recruits. Will new recruits be, the tapestry of this unit include new recruits? And is that something that's by design, or you think that's being done so they can understand the complexities of the job?
Yes, I think that you guys are no stranger to some of our dilemmas, and retention is a big one, not just with LA County, but throughout the nation in our field round. Retention is a problem. So the newest class that just came through, we're working very diligently to not just place them into units, but to keep them in small groups together. And we have them in the less problematic units currently. Just getting a feel for the job. A good sign would be a couple of them even say, hey, I want to work overtime and go work in the tougher units to get my feet wet. And so next week, they'll kind of get their feet wet into those units. So we're just trying to be very intentional with the incoming classes, but they will have direct trainings from the quality control unit itself to ensure that they understand the requirements of BSCC when they're in those units.
Thank you.
Okay, I got a few questions here. First of all, I know that Barry J is for SYTF and Los Padrinos is the hall. But it's interesting when I look at this number for October, there's a 1,900 difference in call-ins. And I'm probably going to say that percentage of that is people that are temporarily assigned as part of their duty assignments to come down there. And I think you answered it, but when we track absenteeism, we're also tracking those that are supposed to be assigned there for part of their work week or whatever, that are not showing up, and we're looking for those patterns?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. The other question is people have to work a double shift. What is the likelihood they're going to be calling in?
So we are aware of that, and when we start to flag somebody, for example, that's one of the first things we look at is whether or not they were held over, and that's the reason for the call. Because that would be again a legitimate reason for somebody if they had worked over an excess of hours. So we are monitoring that as we're looking at the attendance and the reasons for call outs.
Okay, this might be for it's a county issue than you, but I'm talking to staff that are light duty or called in and actually talking to deputies from LASD. They all seem to have a common denominator here with Sedgwick being the holdup of getting them back to work or getting them treatment. Did you do anything about that?
So we have had discussions with CEO Risk Management about Sedgwick and what we can do to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible with them. They've asked us to alert them whenever we have particular situations. And so when it comes to our knowledge in HR and in DMC, which is our Disability Management and Compliance Unit, when we're made aware, we partner with the county CEO Risk Management and let them know, because obviously, that's our vendor. They work for us and we want them to be as efficient as possible.
Okay, and then lastly, I do have the opportunity to
So
interact with.
one second, Commissioner Meredith.
Deanna, could you just explain what Sedgwick is for folks listening?
Oh, yes. Sedgwick is a third-party administrator, meaning they don't work for, they're under contract with LA County. They're not part of LA County, and they manage our workers' compensation process. And so that's.
Okay, then lastly, you may not have a complete answer to this. When we hire these recruits, I have a chance to interact with them. I always ask them, what training have we provided you to go out to the facilities and work these facilities? And they go, yeah, they've told us about it. And when I interview them, they really haven't been trained what they're going to expect. And the other side of that is, within the first 3 months, how many of them resign? And if so, do we do an exit interview?
Okay, so I can't tell you within 3 months because I didn't pull that particular information. I do know that since we started the hiring, and we started our first academy back in January, we've hired about 192, and this is out of memory, I apologize. We have about 132 currently still with us. So, and again, I'll give you exact numbers, but that's my understanding. So we have had turnover, various reasons, and yes, we try to have an exit interview with everyone. Obviously, that's up to their judgment. We do have a couple of ways to do an exit interview. They can meet with me, they can meet with their supervisor, or they can fill out a form for us so that we can try and, glean from the information what the reasons were, the underlying reasons. So there's 3 ways that we try and obtain that exit interview information.
Thank you.
If I could add a little of that just for some context. I had the privilege to oversee Kilpatrick for a while. And while I was there, we were able to create and implement an onboarding process. So that process brought over to LP not too long ago, and we're formalizing it. It looks a little different from camp to juvenile hall, but it's really the focus on giving the opportunity for the new recruits to come in with a coaching mentality behind them, keeping them together for the first few weeks, having them learn slowly, because again, retention, as you're bringing up, is one of the biggest challenges. So we're paying close attention to their integration. There was an officer not too long ago, we decided to pull him off the line just for some coaching. He felt he wasn't maybe kind of stepping up, and he had some questions himself. We encouraged him, offered him some services, and we want to get him back working with his coworkers. So we're keeping a close eye on all of them, because we know out the big picture, it affects our overall staffing. And so bringing in these new recruits is helpful, but we want to keep them and make them feel supported. So once we formalize the actual onboarding process on paper, make it part of the LP kind of policy, then I'll definitely share that with you guys.
Thank you.
Commissioner Garcia-Leyes.
Thank you. First, for Ms. Carlisle, would you say, is it true that at Los Padrinos, the staffing numbers are slowly increasing as more full-time staff are reporting to work with more frequency?
I'm actually going to defer to Albert on that because they track the daily staffing requirements.
I came with 2 numbers, and forgive me if I don't have more, and I can get more, but I came with the average of our full duty reporting for the month. There was a big uptick from September. We averaged about 105, and then in October to 124. Already early this month, just because I'm looking at the numbers every day, we've already hit 3 or 4 days over 100. That is extremely different from when I first got there in late July, in October. So in my opinion, being there on the ground and speaking to the management team and looking at the numbers, there is an uptick in full duty reporting, and that could just be various reasons. So we're hoping the culture, the settling of the facility itself is adding to that. We are very diligent in getting more programs there, welcoming our credible messengers as that's kind of taking more into place. So more programs coming in, more full duty coming in, it's going to add to a much healthier environment.
Okay, then how do we square that with what I'm looking at for the call outs for Los Padrinos being pretty consistent from month to month, including up through October?
Yeah, I would have to definitely pull our daily staffing in and compare it to the call outs now, DSB or Los Padrinos, compared to the call outs from who's being deployed from the field. And once we can pull those both numbers and actually separate it in the system, then we could probably take a better look at that.
Okay. Okay, I think most of the rest of these questions are for you, Mr. Benuelos. Okay, so I'm looking at the cap, And, okay, so if this cap isn't effective at remedying the issues of noncompliance by January, the BSCC will issue a notice to shut down Los Padrinos, just like it did Central and Berry J Juvenile Hall, right? So is that right?
Sounds
Yeah,
correct.
So this is serious stuff. Okay. I just want to set that because I think not everybody in the audience really knows what a cap is or where we are in this process. I have no doubt that you are going to do a great job with most of the things like not having policies and the team you've put together, I'm sure is going to handle that. The big concern is staffing. Will you be able to have the bodies you need to meet this goal? So I'd like to go over the staffing part in some detail. So it says here that youth are regularly attending school programming, exercises, and recreation. However, consistency and documentation needs to be improved. So we have been trying for years to get a list of what programs are offered in the halls and camps and who's showing up, and have had not much real progress in that. So
Can I address that?
please.
So I know you guys have been asking for years because of my other roles. I was on the other side getting the request and helping the department get that to you guys, that we may not have done that efficiently or up to par by any means. And I've also been speaking to several of you about an app that can actually kind of compile all our programs and easily be able to access who's showing up, who are the active programs. That was finally pushed through our IT and is active in the last 3 weeks. So I'm just going to work with them at this point and work with our administration at headquarters to see now how we could provide access to some of the external bodies so that you guys can access and see which programs are coming, which ones are active. And so that information should be, and I hate to say it years later, but it should be around the corner where you guys will have it much more accessible than before. I can confidently say that because of some of the support we have on the facility now, at the chief's order, we are now getting the kids out to rec consistently. School movement is happening. Kids are going to school. There's always days that you just have unique circumstances that come up that may deter us from that. But there's much more support to taking care of some of the minimal requirements that we all know the kids should have: going to school, getting off a rec, and getting some programming. Again, it comes back to staffing, as you know. And so the full duty, as they increase slowly, it allows the more programming within the unit as well. And it's just more movement within the facility when you have more staff to say, oh, you have baby bonding moment, well, we have staff to take you over there. Or you have a visitor with your attorney, we have staff to move you around. So it's all going to slowly increase the services that we can provide. Again, just trying to create a better culture.
So this documentation is going to be ready for the BSCC by January? I mean, are we already preparing it?
That is my intentions to meet the BSCC cap for January.
Okay, so so by January, we expect the BSCC and the POC to be able to see regular documentation. I mean, what you put here is that educational services, recreation, visitation, religious services, and programming have not been negatively impacted as a result of staffing shortages. Okay, I can't wait to see it.
I can't wait to provide it for you guys.
Then the other thing is staffing. When I've visited Los Padrinos, I have seen it crowded with staff around the offices, and a good number of staff just around the campus. And then I get into the units, and it's 3 or 4 staff in the units, and that the other folks are there, are not qualified or like their ability status, whatever, is not allowing them to be in the units with the youth. So the documentation that we're talking about providing to the BSCC, is it going to specifically talk or track the number of staff that are in units around the youth?
We could probably extrapolate some of that information and detail out online supervision staff opposed to staff on the facility. And to be fair, you know, you guys have been all to Los Padrinos during the day. It's like a small city. There's so many, seems to be so many people walking around. What is not easily done is to identify who's who. So a lot of the people are program people coming in, helping out from external agencies, our partner agencies. We just have a slew of people that are on that site that may not be probation at all, or maybe probation with some limitations. So I know the appearances, there's just people everywhere. Why aren't they in the buildings? But I could assure you, if they have the ability to be in the building, we're placing them in the buildings.
Yeah, I believe that 100%. My concern though is that we're going to have numbers that show we're meeting minimum staffing ratios. But if you actually go visit a unit, it's an unsafe situation for the staff because they don't have enough to be able to safely interact with youth. I'm looking forward to getting a report on what happened with the escape the other day, but my immediate question was there one DSO in the day room by himself when this happened? Or, I mean, how many staff were there? So that's the number I'm really hoping to see documented when you say in this plan that we're going to see more proper documentation of staffing. So I'd like to make a motion. Oh, you want to go first?
I was just going to ask 2 questions, but I can ask them after the motion. They're short questions.
Yeah, no, ask questions first. They might inform the motion.
Okay. So, Ms. Carlisle, you suggested that you're working with managers and training them about the progressive corrective action. Is that occurring at the supervisor level also?
Yes, so in January, we rolled out HR trainings specific and separate from, we have what we call supervisor core, which new supervisors are required to go through, but just like other training skills, there are perishable skills too. If you don't do discipline or you don't do leave management all the time, you're not going to know whether the law has changed, whether the process has changed. So we're doing monthly trainings for managers, any supervisor, and we're also doing ad hoc trainings where we'll go at request of, a management team, LP, Barry J. We just did one yesterday, the day before. Was it for you? Or so we're trying to do our best to make sure that our supervisors have all the tools and knowledge to be able to do the work that they have to do as well, and holding people accountable.
Thank you. And Mr. Benuelos, I'm kind of wondering, given the average number of employees that show up to work consistently, what number of youth would you have to meet the standards? So right now we have over 200 kids in the hall, and you have these problems with staff and having to bring in the other. But if you just had the consistent number, let's say it's 100, each shift, how many youth would that equate to?
I think I understand your question, and you're familiar with our organization. So it's a little difficult to always give a broad number because different units are staffed with different kids and a different amount of kids, right? So you see, you have a DD unit, right? Youth that need a little more attention, a little more challenging because of so many reasons. You may overstaff that unit, right? But the unit next door, or maybe your 18 and 19-year-olds, a little more high functioning. They have a steady program. You may just have to go with the state requirement, which is 2, right? Or we would never leave one staff alone, so our minimum would be 2. That could cover a day room of 15 young people. So it's kind of hard. We shoot for the number of 90 if we're above 90 full duty. That allows us to staff our current units, which we have 10 units open. If we hopefully do not increase the population and we need more capacity, well, then we have to then tackle and reallocate some resources and where we can get them to staff them. So we're always looking to staff at the minimum, but at times, because of also one-on-one supervision that may be put on through Department of Mental Health or ourselves, I have a unit full of 10 officers and 6 of them are for one-on-ones that are in there. So it just kind of depends on those dynamics. And I hope that's a fair answer.
It makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so the motion I'd like to make is that POC staff, Ms. Julian, communicate with Mr. Benuelos or whoever probation assigns in order to ensure that we get weekly updates on the documentation that's described in the CAP staffing plan. So things like this improved documentation that youth are making it to all of, programming and religious services without negative effect as a result of staffing, right? So that that whatever documentation that the department is putting together for the BSCC to demonstrate these things, that we get it as much as possible. So, and I don't want to try and describe it in any more detail, but rather that the motion is for POC staff and department staff to work together to make sure that we're getting whatever it is that's being produced by the department.
Does anyone second that motion?
In his case, I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Meredith. Do I do discussion? Okay, is there any discussion related to that motion? No. Public comment related to that motion? No. Oh, one.
It looks like we have one public commenter on WebEx. If you want to comment on WebEx, click the little hand icon or dial *3 on your phone. Audrina, did you want to comment on this item? We're going to unmute.
Yeah.
I can hear you. Go ahead. You can begin.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment addressing staffing issues. Just from the outside looking in, and based off my own personal experiences, when we walk into, as a parent, when we walk into the juvenile halls, we go through a very thorough search with search dogs. And, even at Barry J. Nidorf, they made us undo our hair and everything like that. And I don't see the same, I guess, security as far as when probation gets searched. We're taking off our shoes and everything. And just, I'm watching the probation officers. I'm a very observant person. So I'm watching them enter the building. I was like, man, just hypothetically speaking, I was like, he could just walk in with a whole bunch of pills and no one not even realize it. Because, coming down on the security of these problems, and especially the overdose, which is a big one, and it's concerning for me as a parent. I can speak for a lot of parents as well. On that, I just trying to help remedy these issues, and I'm just like, man, they don't even have the same searches that we're subject to. So maybe could be some more improvement in that aspect to how how contraband enters. And even within the clear bags, there's like a lot of stuff. You don't even see them going through all those clear bags. And it's just a lot of improvements, in my opinion, just from the outside looking in. And just something I wanted to do a brief comment on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John Allen. John will unmute you. Yes, these are comments specific to Commissioner Garcia-Lay's motion regarding POC staff receiving weekly updates regarding the documentation necessary to complete the corrective action plan. John Allen, we're going to unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I don't know if my contribution is directly responsive to the motion, but I'm a head deputy with the Los Angeles Public Defender's Office assigned to our juvenile operations. And there's some information I wanted to share with the commission today concerning the experience of our staff, specifically attorneys, paralegals, and social workers, attempting to interview our clients at Los Padrinos, and met with what I think can fairly be characterized as unacceptably long wait times of 1 hour or longer, which infringes upon both our minor clients' constitutional rights to counsel and due process, and of course our attorneys and support staff's ability to carry out our jobs. The same problem is encountered by court-appointed confidential experts who we have appointed when they go in to speak to clients privately. They encounter the same wait times. It creates a major problem for our operation and threatens our clients' constitutional rights. final point that I wanted to raise this afternoon is with respect to phone calls. When we try to call, our staff attorneys try to call to speak to our minor clients in the hall, there's no ability to speak directly. We have to leave a message with staff in the hall, and then we don't get calls back ever from the minors. So effectively, we're without the ability to speak to our clients by calling them on the telephone. That's what I wanted to share with the commission this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Ismail, is that the end of public comment? Okay, Ramona Barajas, we're going to unmute you.
I don't want to speak on the motion itself, but I do want to make a comments on what was spoken before to make this motion.
Please
And-
proceed.
Yes, and so I just wanted to address the part about that there's no cost for the call outs, but there is a cost. When people call out sick, somebody else has to replace that shift. And so that person might be inquiring overtime. So right there is a cost. And the fact that they might be doing more hours increases the possibility of a medical leave. And so then it does have a cost. You know, it might not be direct cost, but there is a cost for people calling out. And secondly, there was a mention that if these things at Los Padrinos do not get fixed, it might be shut down. And I really encourage that there has to be a plan B, because you know, I've been at this for 2 years following everything. And instead of seeing progress, I just keep seeing one hall shut after another, shut after another. Los Padrinos is the last thing we have. So, you know, what is going to be plan B if it gets shut down as well? Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have a commenter in the room. You can begin whenever you're ready.
So yeah, how y'all doing? My name is Jacob Jackson, you know, Friday Go by Black, also known as Black, with the Youth Justice Coalition, also a member of the LA Youth Urban Coalition. And I just wanted to say, I didn't get to make public comment earlier. I just want to express my deepest gratitude, sorrows, sympathies, and prayers and condolences to the family of Brian Diaz as well. And just reliving that moment with them was kind of intense, and you feel me? Yeah, just a little heartbreaking as well. So I just want to put that on top. But I just want us to remain, you feel me, committed to making sure we get this app out there, you feel me, these weekly updates. You feel me? Because we want to make sure that the youth have the staff that actually care for them, that are there for them, you know, that have their best needs at heart and meeting them where they at, even though a lot of them, you know, take harm themselves. So yeah.
Thank you, Black. Any other public comments online?
But before we call the vote, I'd like to respond to the public defender who called in. Please, if you're listening to me, please document what you're describing. We have, I would like to think of the BSCC process as an opportunity to improve things. So if you're able to document whether or not staffing is sufficient to allow attorney visits, that's important information that could be provided to the BSCC, to Allison Ganter in particular. But along with that is, please don't blindside the department with this information the day before BSCC does their evaluation. Like, please share that with the POC or with the department if you're able to document it, so that we can use this as tools to fix the problem. Yeah, my 2 minutes is up. Thank you.
So I have some questions, but I don't know if they're related to your motion or if I should just wait. Is that? I can just wait till we vote on the motion to just make it clearer.
Okay, sounds good. We're going to vote on Commissioner Garcia-Lay's motion, which was seconded by Commissioner Meredith, to ask the staff of direct the staff of the Probation Oversight Commission to work with the staff of the Probation Department to ensure that we receive weekly updates on all the documentation described in the CAP for purposes of complying with the CAP. CAP stands for Corrective Action Plan. Okay, please vote yes, no, or abstain. Uh, Commissioner Canales? Commissioner Carrillo?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia Lays?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis has left. Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Mundo? And Commissioner Terry? And Commissioner Kakani? Okay, so that is unanimous, and we have 6 votes in favor.
Try to make this brief because I also have to leave at 4:45. Okay. Mr. Smythe is not here, but I don't know if he left or Ms. Carlisle, perhaps when you're back. Mr. Smythe's representation, again, similar to the public comment that there is no budget impact, feels a little strange to me. Because when someone calls out, sure, whatever pay they were going to receive shifts to a sick time allotment, but presumably someone also has to stay. And if they're staying, we're paying them overtime. And my understanding, at least recently, overtime meant double pay. I'm not sure if that's continuing, if that's the continuing pay rate where someone gets paid 200% of their salary if they're overtime, or if they're asked to stay, if they're held over.
So I think, as Robert interpreted it, is there an additional impact for that person? But you bring up a very good point that yes, if Albert has a call out and he needs to meet minimum staffing, he's likely going to hold someone over, and that does result in overtime and additional pay.
Is there a way to document how much the probation department is spending in overtime connected to call outs, connected to, I guess that would be the primary issue that you would hold someone over?
We can run some reports based on the budget code, basically the billing to the facilities on overtime. So we can get at some numbers in that method to find out what our overtime is, and then do some comparisons to, you know, other time periods to see, okay, is that higher, lower, you know, all of that.
Okay.
So yeah, we can get overtime numbers from our payroll. Generally, you know, the month following that when it was incurred. So we can go back and backdate for you since LP opened in June.
Yeah.
We can look at the LP overtime numbers and provide the raw data.
Yes.
If I could just add, the department provided data similar to that to us. Gosh, Deanna, was it 2 years ago when we were conducting our research on the 56-hour work week? That was very specific and facility specific. So we also have some data we could compare it to, although the facilities usage has changed. But I'd be happy to follow up with Ms. Carlisle and Mr. Smythe about that request.
Yeah, I think that would be super helpful. My second question is just related to these numbers and the call outs at LP, right? Because in the month of July, you had 489 people calling out that month. And by the month of October, you have 1,024 people calling out. I'm assuming that's for the entirety of the month. And I think as it plays out, for example, in October, on average, you have 35 people calling out every day. And so if you need 90 full duty staff to be there in order to meet the needs of these young people, when 30 people call out in the morning, does that mean you're asking 30 people to stay over? Does that mean I guess I just don't understand how that corresponds to the very first item in the corrective action plan around meeting staffing needs when on average you have 30 folks out of potentially 90 calling out.
Yeah, fair question. I could answer that. So it's a combination of things. It's the chief's order to have field officers deploying. So that makes up some of that staffing need. There is some holdovers, not as many as we have seen in the past, but there's still some holdovers. So the combination of the holdovers, deployment staff, that really helps us meet the daily functions that we need to meet.
Okay.
And I'll add a little point of clarification. All staff who are assigned to report, whether they're full duty or light duty, still have to call out if they're not going to be there. And so it's not necessarily reflective of what you're talking about, the ones who are full duty and able to go in and do that one-on-one supervision. Yeah, because we have a number of people, as you saw in the report, who are currently on modified duty.
Yeah, I guess I don't get how that works then. So like for the AM shift, you need 90 people there, whether they're limited duty, full duty. Is that how you
Full duty, we need 90 people on site.
on
to-
site?
to
So
pro-
they might be
to pro-
modified duty, but they would still make up that 90?
90 on site to provide direct supervision.
Okay,
So we could have, and Ms. Carlisle pointed out a good point, if you have 35 callouts, maybe 25 of those are already on light duty. So they really reflect the unit supervision aspect.
My third question related to this app, does it also include why programming doesn't occur? Whether, after the incident last week, it appeared that the facility was on lockdown. So presumably no programming occurred. I'm not sure for how long. But will the app kind of document that's programming didn't occur because of staffing, or programming didn't occur because of a lockdown, or programming didn't occur because the provider didn't show?
Not sure exactly the question that you're asking, it only because, so programming resumed Monday afternoon after the incident on Saturday.
Okay.
Full programming, lockdown was lifted. But are you saying when traditionally anything has to be shut down, is there a?
I'm just saying, generally speaking, right? If you're tracking whether or not programming is occurring.
Yes.
Right, in this app. And how
Oh.
many young people are engaging in it?
Gotcha. That
Are you
app.
also documenting if it doesn't occur, why it's not occurring?
Thank you for saying that. I thought you were saying act. So now that you say
Sorry,
application, I got it.
application, yes.
We intentionally didn't make it as robust as we probably wanted to be on the onset. And that's only because we didn't want information that we could consider maybe confidential to limit the ability of people accessing the app. For what we have identified working with you guys over the past years, and the BOS just wanting to know how many programs are in the facility now. What is the calendar? So when we walk in, we know where to go. That was the intention for the app. It does track how many participants, but it wouldn't show you the actual names.
Sure.
Right? And those who didn't, it wouldn't show you exactly why. We may have some other applications we could in the future kind of bring together to make that more robust, but that's where we're at today.
My last question is related to OC spray. One of the regulations under Title 15 is that there should be an outline of the facility's approved methods and timelines for decontamination from chemical agents. And this is kind of like a broader issue related to that. So obviously, the Board of Supervisors mandated in 2019 that all facilities phase out the use of OC spray. Following the July incident, LP reinstituted the use of OC spray. Is there any plan to phase it out entirely?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question. That would have to come from our chief's office.
Okay, so at this point, you don't have a plan in your hand to phase it out?
I don't have a plan in my hand.
Okay, or on your computer, or, I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious here. I'm just saying, like, do you have a plan
No,
in your possession?
I do not have one.
Okay,
I'm not saying that there isn't one in the works or in development, but again, I couldn't provide one to you.
okay. And are the new recruits being provided with OC spray? I know you said that a bunch of new folks are joining.
Any officer working in Los Padrinos is afforded OC spray.
Is the training ongoing related to, I know there was some training that was associated with the phase out of OC spray. Is that all stopped as well?
I'm not aware of a specific training,
Mm.
so I couldn't, with any accuracy, give you that.
I think Commissioner Kokani is referring to the 40-hour, 80-hour de-escalation training that was merged with the OC spray training. I don't know the answer to the question, but I think that's what you're talking.
Right, unfortunately, I don't have a confident answer to give you in that.
I don't have any other questions. Oh, yes, Commissioner Terry.
Just wanted to confirm, so for the next meeting, you'll be able to share more about the app and its availability and when it'll be launched, I think you said, for the public?
I could work with our headquarters and our IT department to put together kind of a one sheet of what it does and doesn't do. And then we'll work towards, obviously the goal was to provide access at some point so you guys can see the calendars and the programs that are active. So that's something we could definitely put together.
Okay. We need to do public comment, or is it? Okay. All right, then we are going to move to item number 5. Okay. Because we only did public comment on the motion, technically, although I think public comment was provided more broadly, we do need to make space for public comment related to the agenda item in general. Is there any public comment in the room? Oh, sorry, I should let you handle that.
Hello, my name is Jessica. I was wondering if the programs that are in the facility would be made to the public, or it's just like in the internal system?
That's actually a really good question. And I know, I certainly don't speak for the probation department. I work for the executive office as the executive director of the Probation Oversight Commission. But I have had, I don't know, Albert, has it been 2 years long of conversations about this with the department? And I know the department has some concerns about publishing a lot of detail around the programming because of concerns about the ability to identify when youth are participating in certain programs. So as of now, we have been receiving actually on a regular basis PDFs, like paper calendars of programming. We are not sharing that information publicly. We print and post almost all of the information we receive, but we were not doing that with the program calendars. Our hope is that the app will actually totally alleviate that problem, because we could say, which is what Dr. Gongora is working on, here's how many hours of programming there is in this category: education or substance abuse or restorative justice, et cetera. Here's how many youth participated. Here's how many youth didn't participate. So to be able to show trends in the way we've shared other data. Because I don't think, but this really is a department decision. The intent is to share the app with the public. I think the intent is to share the app with the staff of the Probation Oversight Commission to allow for that kind of data analysis. I hope that answers your question.
And if there's no more public comment, thank you, Mr. Banuelos. Thank you, Ms. Carlisle. You may be excused. And Mr. Strong, who's already up here, will, I guess, present to us on item number 5, which is where we will discuss and take appropriate action on the Los Angeles County Probation Department's continuing efforts to address contraband and substance use in juvenile facilities. Mr. Strong?
Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me up there? Yeah. First, although even the family's not here, I just want to give my condolences to the Diaz family and for those supporters of there. Having family members that have been incarcerated, that have suffered from substance abuse, and I've even lost family in similar situations. I feel their pain. As far as our contraband, the department is taking all efforts and are taking the fact that contraband is getting into our institutions very, very seriously. We've extended our contracted canine services. We are looking to actually expand the internal canine program within probation. We are looking to partner, in a sense, with outside agencies that have the technology and the expertise to do some of these investigations. One of the things that is very important is not simply intercepting contraband, but also putting forth the effort and the investigative process into finding out how it's getting in, who's bringing it in. So that is something that's very important, particularly from a law enforcement perspective. We're looking at policies, and we're implementing new policies about entering our juvenile institutions, particularly for our staff. Technology newer technology in terms of baggage scanners, in terms of body scanners. I think I heard it mentioned earlier today. Those things have been researched. We are looking into providing additional information, but we're also working through the very tedious process of moving some of these, high dollar items through the county in terms of actually getting them in place. Netting, drug contraband, detecting technology. These are all things that take time. And we are presenting what we think are very, very strong solutions to some of these issues. And again, it's just a tedious process, but we are moving that process forward. We have already onboarded, and I hope I'm saying the correct right, Ms. Carlisle, our safety and security specialist. I think we have about 20 that are ready to go. We have another 8 or 9 that are in the queue that are going through backgrounds. Right now, we are developing their uniforms and we'll be getting their policies together. And my strong hope is to get them deployed sometime just after the holiday, the Thanksgiving holiday, very end of November or 1st of December, and if at all possible, even before. I can answer any questions specific about those. It's pretty much a broad overview, but I don't want to take up too much time if you have specific questions.
We'll start with Commissioner Mundo. Commissioner Terry?
Can you share more about the role of the staff you just described? What's their role going to be?
So the safety and security specialists are going to be a augmented security for the facility. They will be county employees, which means that they can help us provide security inside, not necessarily with youth movement, but they can patrol the inner perimeter, looking for contraband, drones, things that were thrown over the wall. But they will also be able to provide exterior perimeter. I'm sorry, my alarm's going off. Exterior perimeter patrols as well. That's going to be their primary function. And just to add to that, right now we are taking probation staff and we had been utilizing them to do those perimeter patrols. And this is going to allow us to, push those staff back into the facilities that are there, that are designed and trained to handle the youth supervision.
Commissioner Canales? Can you speak into the mic?
Yes, my question is also in reference to the safety and security specialists, and that you're getting them uniforms and getting them ready to be deployed. So are they probation officers? Are they like deputized and law enforcement, a branch of law enforcement?
No, they are not probation officers. This is an outside security. Many of them are bringing in law enforcement experience. However, they're not probation officers, but they will be employees of the probation department.
So an outside element, did you contract with, are they just looked at individually? Did they apply individually or did you go with a firm or whatever it's called?
No, so this is a new classification.
Okay.
Within the county, within probation department. We will still have contracted security, which we already have on hand that staff our facilities. This is going to be probation county employees, not contracted.
Okay.
So yes, they've gone through individual application process and have been vetted through human resources.
And this is all to combat the drugs, to keep the drugs out of the facilities, right?
This is to
part of the-
provide,
yeah.
yes, an overall extended security.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carrillo?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Strong, back to this unit, what do you call them again? Was there a name that's assigned to them?
Safety and security specialist?
So they're not sheriff deputies?
No.
Okay. Also, what's the policy when it relates to probation staff? Are they just patrolling interior, exterior, or are they capable of searching an employee inside or outside the facility?
You're still speaking specific to that?
That unit.
Okay.
Yep.
So right now, we are developing the scope of work. We are developing the policies that will be implemented under this program. As far as searching staff, are you talking about inside the facility?
Either
or-
parking lot, in the unit, wherever.
So we have contracted security that provides our weapon screening. At this point, there is no plan to replace them at the weapon screening process where our employee searches begin.
So beyond the weapon screening, which are the folks with the white, white shirts, I forget the name of their company now, but we can all visualize who that is. So beyond that screening there, someone who's actually gone through that and is now working their shift or walking around the institution, if for whatever reason they bring suspicion that they need to be either their office, their bodies to be searched, are these individuals allowed to do that?
I don't foresee these individuals being the ones that do that, no.
What about searching someone's car outside the institution? Staff or anyone else who's driven onto the property?
So what you're referring to is having reasonable suspicion or probable cause to move forward with an investigative process. And that needs to be a peace officer, law enforcement, and we would need to have that investigative process either in-house or with outside law enforcement, depending on which jurisdiction we're in.
So on the outside, what limits do they have? Are they there specifically to observe and then call law enforcement, or are they there to observe and then contact the supervisor on duty? What happens after something is located?
So they will be providing security as, I don't mean to say it in a way that's not being definitive, but they are going to be an additional security. They will observe and report. They can observe and take action. Yes, they can, detain people if they see them violating certain laws or rules, but I do not foresee them taking full law enforcement action in terms of searching. They will have to contact law enforcement to come out and take over at some point.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Would they be armed? Would they be armed with some type of weapon
Yes, they are armed security.
inside and outside?
Not inside, no.
And lastly, has there been either training or some partnership with the existing security? Maybe not to sort of lower their status, but the folks who have been there at the door for collaboration about maybe just working together? Because I know there's a post outside Barry J where I see one of those officers in a vehicle by the gate as you're driving up to the booth. There's typically someone there. So would they be replacing that individual, or would they be working hand in hand with them?
No, they're not going to be replacing the contracted security. This is an augmented security. Again, we are using probation personnel that have been doing outside perimeter patrols. This augmented probation employee will be able to do that. We will still, as far as the plan for right now, we will still have our contracted security that happens the weapon screening and the parking lots and so forth. They will augment, and that therefore we will no longer have to have probation that can be doing youth supervision outside doing those patrols.
Thank you.
Commissioner Meredith?
Going back to the security specialists, realizing they're county employees, who's going to supervise them when they're on duty?
They will be under the campus safety and security office.
There'll be somebody at the facility when they're working then to supervise them?
There will be a facility manager and to be determined how they will report in and out, but we will also determine a lead for them each shift.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for, because it's no secret I've not been satisfied with the contract security that we had at Barry J. I think Los Padrinos is much better. And I had recommended to the prior chief and this chief that we do go to our own in-house people. So I'm glad to see we're in that direction. I'm just curious to who they'd answer to. What article dogs and drug sniffing dogs do we have available to us?
Say that one more time. What article?
What article sniffing and drug sniffing dogs do we have available?
Oh, So article, we have drug sniffing dogs. We have electronic dogs that can obviously look for cell phones, tablets, vape pens and those type of things. So right now we have a in-house canine program and we're also contracting with an outside vendor that helps supplement.
Okay, now I'm going to throw a couple of examples at you. And I've had, the chief's heard this from me and the prior chief heard it from me and the prior chief before that. And that is that we don't really have an investigative body to handle something that happens at the facility. And we really need, somebody says, okay, we got contraband here, it was brought in by somebody, or it was delivered by somebody, drone, whatever. Who's going to investigate it? Where are we going to retain the evidence? Who's going to file the case? And we don't have that in place. And I think because of that, a lot of things have gone under the radar. For instance, I know in one case at Los Padrinos that 5 vape pipes were brought in with marijuana in it. And it was brought to the attention of the supervisor and it was brought in by a mother and he says, well, okay, kick her out. And I have no idea what happened to vape pens, right? But there was no process. She should have been arrested. There was no process for resolving this. And so these are kind of the concerns I have regarding this, thing, because I know a lot of contraband has been intercepted recently, including by drone deliveries. And, but I'm not seeing a lot of prosecutions by people bringing it in. And unfortunately, as we heard here, we had a death in the facility. And we've had a couple other overdoses. And, coming from the sheriff's side, you understand the custody facility management and the security issues. Those are concerns that we do need to address. And we need to create an investigative team. And I told this to the chief, I'm telling it to you as your advisor on this. And then signage, a lot of the facilities don't have the proper signage to let people know that, yeah, this is subject to search when you come in here, and here are the laws you can violate if you bring in contraband. So more of a comment than a question.
Well, I appreciate and I share your concerns. As you stated, coming from a law enforcement background, it's concerning that we don't have an investigative process, but we're well aware of that. And we're looking to implement that and build that in. And as I stated earlier, one of the things that we want to do is use some of our contacts to bring in those agencies that do have the expertise and technology and ask for assistance. And that's where we are until we can get that process and a robust one at that put in place.
Yeah, and that's where I go, because we don't have any evidence storage lockers that I'm aware of. And so we collect the contraband. Where is it going? Who's handling it? I mean, at Los Padrinos, in theory, we could call Downey PD to handle it. But I don't know if we want to burden them with every case we have come up. And Somar, we have LAPD, but we've got a lot of other facilities besides the 2 there that have the same risk. I'm done.
Commissioner Garcia-Lez?
What evidence or have you seen or do you know of drones being used to bring contraband into our facilities?
Personally, putting eyes on, no. I mean, we do get PIN reports or preliminary incident notifications about a drone that may have dropped some type of contraband in. They're not that often, as much as what I had heard of in the past, but we get the notifications.
So I mean, it's a little bit more than just curiosity, but I had sort of dismissed it as an urban myth after meeting 20 people who had all said they had heard from somebody else who'd heard from somebody else that it had happened. Am I being, should I not dismiss this as an urban myth? It's actually a real thing?
Again, there have been observations, not me personally, but there have been observations of drones flying over some of
So
our
there are
facilities.
probation staff that you've spoken to who've been like, yeah, no, I saw it. Because I haven't come across that person yet.
Let me say this again. I'm sorry. I have seen notifications where probation staff have reported. I haven't actually spoken to anybody that's physically seen it that I can
But
recall.
those, the probation officers who report that they have seen a drone, those are firsthand. You see what I'm saying? The person who made the notification is saying that I saw something as opposed to somebody told me something.
Typically, the pins or the notifications are put out by management, so it's probably something that's reported to them.
Okay.
How would we follow up on that? If you're not aware of any drones and dropping anything in the facilities?
Again, not personal knowledge, just the notifications that I received.
I guess maybe it's because I make these random checks to facilities. I happen to be aware of a drone dropping pills in the facility that did get intercepted by probation. And that leads to my other question about how we process the drugs that were confiscated.
So we may be talking about the same PIN notification. Again, that's a notification that I received about a drone that was found in one of the facilities. I'm trying to answer this and saying, I haven't personally seen this. I have not personally heard of it other than the notifications.
And then I have a comment, it may be from Mr. Benuelos, and he can pass it on to Mr. Sanders if whatever's appropriate. But one of the things that I have been wondering about for months now is how money transfers involved with drugs and youth. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. These kids are not buying drugs from each other with cash. Like, what's happening? And something was brought to us several months ago that a parent was being told that they could give money to a staff member who would use that money to buy like what we would think of as adult facilities as commissary things, deodorant and Cheetos and Top Ramen. But in fact, that doesn't happen, right? We have these behavior plans that are how you get those things. At any rate, I have since seen many, many, many more parents who have been asked by their children to spend money, to Zelle money or to a certain person in order to buy them like commissary goods. And so that sort of set off oh, maybe that's how this is happening. So one thing that occurred to me that I have not heard happen yet is parent and family education. Letting parents and family know that if anybody asks you for money for your child's necessities, that's probably not what that money is going for. So I think that is something that is maybe a non-law enforcement opportunity to help reduce what appears to have become some sort of, regular commercial drug transactions happening in our facilities.
Question, I can, so, oh, okay.
Sorry, Mr. Strong, what is your title? Are you like head of security or?
Chief Safety and Security Officer.
Okay, with the probation department.
Yes.
Okay, so when you were notified of like a pin that a drone was dropped, I don't even know actually what the right verb is. A drone was seen, intercepted, and it may or may not have had contraband of some sort. You just review the pin. You talk to someone, you do the investigation, or is that not your role? I'm just curious like what your connection is to when these things are reported.
So for the most part, I review the PIN. If there's any questions or any concerns, I may reach out for additional information. I am also looking and providing some advice to the particular facilities or personnel about these are the things that we should be looking for. This is how we can dig further into this. Maybe to contact a law enforcement agency, maybe to book it in protocols. So right now, we're in the process of putting together one of the things that the Commissioner Meredith was talking about, some protocols specific to contraband identification, preservation, collection, logging, and everything. So those are the things that we're working on doing.
Okay. Historically, I feel like not that long ago, we received data around what was found, what it may have been, what it was tested to be, what unit, what facility. Do you have access to that information? Is that logged somewhere?
For individual
Like-
incidents or?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it was presented to us. It was a table that said 20 pills, unit X, 4 vape pens, unit Z.
Yes, so when, I think maybe you're referring to when searches are done and they find certain things. Yes, I do have access to that information.
Okay. Is that something that you could share with the Probation Oversight Commission? It was shared historically, but I think there's a lot of we're seeing more and more overdoses, or we're hearing about more and more overdoses where Narcan is having to be administered. whether it's like Compton Courthouse, where a young person is waiting, in transit, at a facility. So even just getting a sense of like what it is that's being found, how it's being found, I think would be really helpful to paint a better picture, both for us and potentially for the public, to just understand like what young folks are dealing with, so that then we can kind of figure out how it is that we can better support them. Because you can do everything under the sun, to try to stop the entry of these items. But I think, this is a generations long problem, where young folks are oftentimes, and adults are oftentimes resorting to and using contraband to deal with trauma. So if we don't know kind of what they're dealing with, what they have access to, I think we never get to the underlying issue. So we can spend millions of dollars on scanners, but I think young people are going to get what young people are going to get. Adults are going to get what adults are going to get. Because people are just trying to survive. So my request is that there is some sort of like monthly sharing of what's being found, and where. Okay. I guess I am making a motion requesting that monthly data is provided per facility, per unit, on what contraband is being found. That's all I've got. Commissioner Canales.
That second was by Commissioner Canales.
Any discussion?
My comment on the motion would be that I'm happy to work with Mr. Strong and also Mr. Bates from the OIG to share with you what was shared before. So you don't need to write anything down because I'll send it.
Got it. Thank you.
And so that we can just get an update on that. I assume that's what you're asking for, is something similar to what we received previously.
On a regular basis.
Yes, correct, on a monthly basis.
At this time, if we could just, in the interest of time, take public comment related to the motion and to what's been discussed. If there are folks in the room or online, raise your hand. I think we're going to shorten public comment to 1 minute. I'm really sorry.
Hi, my name is Cassidy Bennett. Pronouns are she, her. I work at the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. I'm actually going to share a little bit more later in general public comment because I want to talk about some Public Records Act requests that we've made. But Chair Kirkani, to your motion, I think it's really relevant that a lot of the young people that are here today have been part of preparing those Public Records Act requests. And just as you were saying, really need that transparency and understanding of what's going on within probation. Probation has a lot of information about them. They need that information as well. Thank you.
Peter Shutown, I was just going to suggest that included in that motion, you might want to consider how that evidence was handled and disposed of.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maura. As a young person, I have fought for changes to protect young people from the harms that come with being in the system. Throwing a youth in a cage for probation violations, not documenting, isn't just. How can you teach youth to hold accountability and probation not hold theirs? Why is there no accountability as an officer to document how many violations are made? How can you hold a young person accountable for drug tests, reporting to PO officers, yet not keep proper data on violations? How can you hold a person accountable for not doing drugs, yet have probation officers provide them inside? You take our youth, my peers, off the streets to fail us and put them in the care with some irresponsible adults. From a little violation that starts with the school to prison pipeline, this system is a setup for our youth. And adult supervising, lack accountability, unprofessional reporting, and abuse. And that's not right. Those youth need and deserve more. yes, juvenile halls.
Maura, I'm
is-
really sorry. I have to cut you off. I really appreciate your comment. Thank you
It's
for
okay.
preparing it
Thank
so
you.
well. Thomas?
I just wanted to say real quick, I've actually seen a drone at camp. And what we did with it, I know the supervisor picked it up and we, don't quote me, but we turned it into local law enforcement. That's what we did. But I actually seen one, it was a little cheap drone, little plastic one. If we had the security out there, they probably would have caught the person because you seem like you had to be kind of close to use it. So I've actually seen one. And that's two, talking with some of the kids, building trust with them, they use Cash App. They call up their parents a lot of times, or they'll call, like talk three-way through a friend, and they'll use like little, hey, can you feed my dog? That means put money in my Cash App. Oh, he needs to go have fun. Bring up the drugs. They use like little slang things like that. That's how they move the money around. They won't bring it into money into the facility in fear of losing it. But as far as Cash App and doing it like that, from what I've talked to the kids, that's how it was being done.
Hello everyone, my name is Waldo Lira. I'm part of a arts training and justice network, also alumni with Inside Writers. And I just want to talk about probation's funding. You guys get funded so much money, but yeah, we have youth dying in your facilities. So I just want to touch about that. Like you guys say, you guys have like canine programs, but yeah, where they're at, we just had like a young kid just died right now. But yeah, you guys have all this money just for what? Pepper spray, more pepper spray, new clothing and all that. But yeah, you're supposed to be protecting the youth.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Asada. I'm a fellow with the Arts and Healing Justice Network and Layup Coalition. I want to speak on school-based probation violations. I have seen firsthand while being in school how kids are affected daily from probation, not being able to focus, being searched constantly, getting in trouble for having a small thing such as Sharpies because officers are assuming they're getting high. When probation makes violations in school, why is it so hard to get record of this public? Why is this kept as a secret from us? We need to know how young people are being protected, supported, and connected to meaningful services. It's absolutely irrelevant to have probation at schools where kids are meant to get education, not be harassed and threatened with violations to be incarcerated. That's just setting them up for failure. So as a community, we demand access is granted so information and data can be reviewed properly since probation did not respond properly to data requests. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think this might connect to the Public Records Act request that was referenced earlier. That likely might be connected to general public comment at the end. This is just public comment connected to contraband in the facilities, how it's being tracked, how young people are accessing it. And my motion around probation, sharing that data around where contraband is found, how it's found, and how it's processed. I don't think I included those things originally. So maybe Minor, if you were going to give comment on the Public Records Act request and follow up on, I think, school-based probation, maybe hold off, if that's okay.
Just curious, how has that not been being tracked to like improve it? If that communication hasn't been there, like how has that even been able to improve? Like, what was the like methodology behind that not even being there before? That's relevant.
Are you talking about contraband?
Yeah, like how is like the motion that you just passed, how is that not in place before to even make it being able to be improved? Just curious if anyone has any say on that, like why it wasn't ever before? No? Okay.
So Arts for Healing and Justice Network, we're not going to be able to stay to make public comment at the end. But I'll make public comment about this item. I think it's relevant. And my comment is that addiction is a disease. It's a medical condition that requires treatment. Some of us are born with it, and some of us develop it. Are we collecting data on the medical treatment of young people that are suffering from addiction? Or are we only collecting data on things that can be criminalized? Can that be added? And I'm real curious about the young people who've experienced overdose, which is highly traumatic. So not only are they not being treated medically, but they're also not being treated emotionally, all of the above.
Do you mind if I address that question? I don't know whether you all have to leave soon, Zoe, but I am actually going to talk about that exact topic in my report, which is the next agenda item, because the commission already instructed staff to do some work on the substance use disorder, the treatment availability in facilities. Also, Dr. Gongora is working with a team from the Office of Child Protection around the availability of medically assisted treatment and work that we're doing on harm prevention strategies. So if you can, stay tuned.
I think Zoe's point is a good one, though, that something related to intervention or support provided would be very helpful. Whether substances are found on a young person or on a staff member or an adult coming in, whatever it is, ultimately it's the young people who you are charged with protecting and caring for at a rate of, $423 million a year. So I think perhaps if we could also include in the share back, I'm not sure if that's something that you hold or if it's someone that you work with holds, but what type of support is the unit and the individual provided if and when contraband is found in the unit or on a young person? Does someone have to second that?
Well, yes.
Second.
The original seconder has to second it? Okay, Commissioner Canales, do you agree to that addition? That if there's what intervention, if any? I think, okay. Oh, and how what was done with what was found? Commissioner Meredith? Okay. I mean, I think, yeah, it would certainly be helpful to know how the department deals, especially with young folks, if it is kind of like a public health perspective, or if it is, kind of a, unfortunately, like a criminal response. Yes, Commissioner Garcia-Lez.
So I am a little uncomfortable, but I don't think we need to change the motion. I just maybe set some expectations that we are not probably going to be shared, that personally identifying details about people. I do not want law enforcement agencies collecting information about the healthcare, including addiction treatment of anyone, including these youth. We're gonna bump up against active investigation exceptions or confidentiality rules if we're asking for who was arrested and anything like that, those details. So yes, I'm all in favor of getting whatever we can, but I don't know, I think this sounds like what we're asking for is more than we're gonna get, and we should just be aware of that from the very beginning.
Clarity, I'm just looking.
If I can, just one comment about, the vendor, the staff, the parent, the chief, and therefore the department is very concerned about any persons that are bringing in contraband or any items that are going to cause harm, to our youth. So he's also very serious about implementing, developing, a strong, robust investigative process, investigative unit, and making sure that it doesn't matter if it's staff, if it's parents, if it's a vendor. He takes that very seriously, and we want to make sure that we respond appropriately and adequately to all of those.
Okay, so I'm going to call the roll on the vote on the motion that I believe was made by Chair Kakani, seconded by Commissioner Meredith. No, Canales. Commissioner Canales seconded it, which is to provide the Probation Oversight Commission with a monthly update with the contraband data as it was provided previously. And in addition to that, include how evidence was handled and disposed of, and whether there was an arrest and who was responsible for that arrest, and what the response is to the young people in terms of service provision. Yes? Okay, please vote yes, no, or abstain. Commissioner Canales?
But for the arrest, are we going to write on there what Commissioner Leis Garcia brought up?
It seems to me that this request is asking for a yes or no, like was there an arrest made? Yes, or
Okay.
not a who was arrested.
Right, okay, yes.
Is that a fair characterization?
Statistical information only.
Commissioner Canales?
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia Leis?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith? Commissioner Mundo? Commissioner Terry? And Chair Kakani. That's 7-0 unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. You're excused. We're going to move to item 6 very quickly. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We actually have adjourned item 6. Adjourned, postponed, tabled. Thank you. Item 7 is our executive director sharing updates.
Thank you. So the commission asked me to place this agenda, this item on the agenda on a regular basis for you to know all the things that the staff are working on beyond what's discussed in these meetings. And I will say I have, there's a lot that's happening. I'm feeling very grateful for the team at the Probation Oversight Commission. They're excellent, as you know, and are working on a number of things. We also include this item on the agenda so that we can attach information for the public. Perhaps the most alarming information that you will see attached to today's agenda is the incidence of OC spray. The numbers over the last month or so at Los Padrinos are I don't know what word to even use, startling. So OC spray was reinstated at the facility after an incident that occurred in late July. The commission asked me to conduct an investigation into that incident. I will share that I did finally receive the information about the incident on Monday and Tuesday of this week. So I've just begun the process of conducting that investigation. And a part of the question was how and why the incident resulted in the return of OC spray to the facilities. So we are continuing to review those reports and work toward making the board motion of 2019, and then again, the more recent board motion insisting on the phase out of OC spray come to fruition. It is correct what Mr. Banuelos said earlier, that there is not a plan. Sort of, there is a plan, there was a plan. That plan has been abandoned, I think is the correct word. And the most recent OC spray, is it a bi-monthly report that we have received, has indicated, and also a report back to the board, that the probation department is going to be enlisting the help of their DOJ monitor, their Department of Justice monitor, to create a phase out plan by the end of this month, November of 2023. So we will certainly be awaiting to see what that report says. The phase out plan that was abandoned, that was created by probation, indicated everything was to be phased out by January of 2024. So we'll see what the plan says. I will say there is some good news to report, and I've said this in multiple forums, and I want to make it very clear, is that over the last 3 or 4 months, and in particular since the new chief has become the official chief, the results of our request for information have been responded to significantly more swiftly and in much more entirety than they were before. So we have received quite a bit of data, including data that we really needed to be able to do analysis, and data that is not necessarily favorable to the department. And I say that as a compliment in terms of transparency and accountability that the department has showed. One piece of that data is actually now more than three, items of demographic information that have allowed the Probation Oversight Commission to begin an in-depth review of who the young people are who are incarcerated in the juvenile hall. And so while I'm sorry to see the presentation be tabled today about girls decarceration and structured release, I will say that in December, I'm really looking forward to sharing some of that information with you. Information that will include demographics, things like race, ethnicity, geography, et cetera, who the arresting agency is, but even more importantly, information about charges and what charges the young people in general are facing and also on an individual level, and how those decisions about detention are made with a focus on reducing the population. So the staffing conversation today, I think, was very important, and certainly one of the ways to comply with the BSCC corrective action plan items is to increase staffing, get people to come to work. But there is another mathematical way that would also work for that, which is to reduce the number of young people in the facility. So I feel very excited about the ability to share that data and to work with a number of partners beyond the probation department to find a way to reduce the population. Also, as I mentioned, Dr. Gongora and Jennifer Ochoa Garcia are working very diligently with the commissioners in conducting program audits at the facilities. They're doing so because programs and services is Sarah's job, and also because there has been repeated conversation about the need for robust programming in the facilities. But in particular because of this issue of substance use programming. So with a particular focus on what's available, what's being offered, and making sure that the things on the calendar are actually happening. So we're doing that in our inspections and in these audits, and we'll be looking forward to presenting that to you. And then I also want to say, I hope you read our annual report. It's beautiful. Ismael is a master at putting things together. A lot of effort went into writing it by a number of people on the staff. And in particular, I'd like to point out an article that's written about the voice of expertise on the Probation Oversight Commission. I think there's no better reflection of that voice than what happened today. And I'm really thankful to Chair Kakani for welcoming Brian Diaz's mother today and having actual robust public comment and participation in our meetings. And I think that that comes from a culture of understanding the experience of the impact that probation has on young people, on adults, and on families. And there is an article in there that talks about the expertise of lived experience. Although I will say there's a quote in there by Commissioner Canales that says the voice of lived experience is really important and she really appreciates all of her fellow commissioners. But in wrapping it up today, I will say Commissioner Lewis allowed me to share on his behalf that it seems some days like there are very few victories in our quest for justice and reform. But today there was a big victory. It's hard for me to say it without my voice shaking. That doesn't usually happen to me. I had the great privilege to sit with Commissioner Lewis in his courtroom this morning in his expungement hearing, and the judge granted his expungement. So it's an incredible victory. And I think that what it speaks to for me and why I was so thankful to be there, because I admire Commissioner Lewis so much as a human being and a person, is that we really do have an opportunity to move the culture of our system toward rehabilitation and restoration and healing. And today was a victory in that step forward. So I'm so thankful to the folks who are willing to share their lived experience and traumatic experiences and challenging experiences to make this a better commission. And today we get to celebrate one of them. So that's the end of my report.
Is it okay to switch item 9 or can I not do that? Okay, all right. Okay, we're going to quickly move. Oh wait, any questions related to item 7? Okay, any comment related to item 7?
Thank you, Wendy.
Anything online? No. Okay, I'm going to move us quickly to item 8. Commissioners and POC staff comment only. We don't take public comment on matters that are not posted on the agenda. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay, the announcement here is just one sentence. So, our bylaws state that we elect our leadership in January at the January meeting, which means that we will be nominating for the positions of chair, vice chair, and secretary at the December meeting. So, I'm saying that for members of the public to know, and also for members of the commission to know, to be thinking about your interest in leadership. And that's the item. We did discuss today a few items that we'll be having on the December 14th agenda, but we'll publish that as soon as possible.
Anything else from the commissioners related to item 8? That's items not posted on the agenda. I actually don't. That you'd like to discuss or place on a future meeting agenda for action.
I don't care if we, sorry. I don't care if we do this number 8 or number 9, but I do want to talk about the PRA request and the
Okay,
letter we
what's
got.
next?
So, okay, that's.
Okay, let's do it next. Okay, if there's no comments, let's go to agenda item number 9, which is an invitation for members of the public to address the commission on items not on the agenda. Wendy, if you could please facilitate public comment for us.
Thank you. And I would encourage members of the public to see the attachment to the public comment on item, is it 9? On item number 9, which demonstrates the what's about to be discussed. And the commissioners are in receipt of this, and it's posted.
Okay, can we speak first? Yeah, I don't think there's any reason not to. Yeah.
I don't.
So we got the letter. I just want to give everybody some information before they give public comment. This is why I was thinking maybe number 8, but.
The problem with number 8 is that we actually don't take public comment on
Yeah.
item number 8. I think this is up to you.
We're not taking action. We're just discussing.
Right, but I think that because the comment relates to the comment that we all received, that and I know folks have been waiting all day, so I would like to make space for those folks who've been waiting all day, and I know we lost some. So if we could just do public comment, ideally 1 minute.
I will move quickly. So background on our request, as I said earlier, I work at the Legal Aid Foundation. On March 30th of 2022, LAFLA, the ACLU, and CALL, on behalf of Youth Justice Coalition and Arts for Healing Justice Network, sent a PRA request to probation regarding their school-based probation program. The request asked for several categories of information, including staffing of deputy probation officers at schools, data on filing of probation violations and other outcome data, budget of the school-based program, and training materials. A year and a half later, we have received minimal responses to this request, and we've heard consistently from the department that no such requests or no such records exist, or that the only information would be found only in a young person's confidential PCMS file. Our most recent request that I sent to you all in the email hasn't actually even been acknowledged. The lack of transparency on probation's budget planning is egregious. Over numerous years, lost my minute, but you got my information in the email, and I'll let Jaden on.
Thank you, Cassidy. My name is Jaden Ojiabru. I'm with the Collective for Liberatory Lawyering. Cassidy had the chance to just share a little bit about our initial PRA request, which you know about, and I guess I just want to take one moment to highlight the fact that one concern we really hope you'll uplift to the probation department and help us to get some transparency on is the fact that they will not disclose to us information about their staffing. The only information we ever received from them with respect to where do you actually put your school-based staff, if they are allegedly at schools, where are they? They claim that they didn't keep track of that information. If that is true, I think that's really a problem, because all that shows is that they're not even coordinating between there's not coordination between the department. And if that's not true, if they do know where their school-based probation staff are at which schools, which they should know, then that just goes to show that they are explicitly attempting to keep that information from us. We're really concerned about that. And that's also on behalf of the Arts for Healing and Justice Network and also Youth Justice Coalition. And we are just really hoping that you all will help us in bringing those issues up and helping us to get some sort of transparency from the probation department. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Lena Mallet with the Children's Defense Fund. Mine is general, but today to me, and I think to all of us, felt like a reminder of what is at stake. It's youth, precious, precious sacred lives and their families. And when advocates ask for these alternatives to incarceration as embodied in Youth Justice Reimagined, in the Safe Healing Centers, in YES teams, we expect these demands to be taken seriously. And we expect that they're metabolized with urgency. They aren't lofty concepts, they are life-saving measures when everything else that we see is life-draining and is not life-affirming, and seeks to disappear and bury young people. So it's my hope that this commission moves with fidelity to push the Board of Supervisors and the CEO, but because we know that money can move and that it's a choice.
That wraps up our public comment in the room, and we'll go first to Lupe Ross online. Lupe, we're going to unmute you. Ms. Ross? Yes, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you. Two real brief comments. I've sat in the visiting area waiting to be admitted in for visiting. I've seen numerous staff that come through with bundles of bags, some carrying carts, and the staff just walks in. Nobody's checking anything, but yet they check us. My other concern is the safety person that talked. He said that the new safety people that are going to be exterior and interior, if there is something that happens in a facility, are those people that are armed going to go in and assess or assist the breakup of a fight or whatever is going on? What is going to happen to the gun that they're holding while they're outside? Do they bring it into the facilities? Which to me would be dangerous because they could be attacked and that gun can be removed from them by a youth. That's my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Thank you for being here today. Next, we'll go to James Maddox. James, we're going to unmute you. James, you may have to, oh, now we can hear you. Go ahead and begin.
With all of the problems affecting the probation department, it seems that if the problems were of a real serious concern, the chief probation officer and the chief deputy would attend the oversight commission meetings. Their absence speaks to how seriously they view the issues. To quote Winston Churchill, "I no longer listen to what people say. Rather, I watch what they do. Behavior never lies." Thank you.
Thank you, James. And our final speaker is Adrina. Adrina, we're going to unmute you.
No, I believe it was Commissioner Lewis who gave a statement that says not to point the finger, and I agree to the extent of not pointing the finger. But now, I would like to see progress and more programs and a lot come from this, a lot of change instead of letting the death of this young man go in vain. And there's a lot we can do together as a community and work together to obtain the goals, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing in life, and it's up to us to write history and make these changes for our community. And I will quote again Winston Churchill, like the person before me: history will be kind to me, for I intend to write it. So now it's time to fix what's broken and write history together and make these changes for our youth, to make impactful changes that's going to benefit their lives of kids and the lives of actually our community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrina.
Commissioners?
Yeah, so I wanted to address the PRA issue. We got the letter, and I appreciate people who write written comment and get it to us well enough in advance that we can do something about it. And Ms. Julian and I have met with the civil litigation unit about their PRA process and their failures to respond to this one adequately. As you can imagine, the civil litigation unit is loath to admit fault in an issue where, litigation is almost always present if it's fallen on their desk. But they are willing to meet and have a face-to-face about what documents do exist that would give you the information you need. And I, in person, and the POC is happy to be referee, mediator, witness, whatever you need at those meetings and make sure that that it happens. So we will set that up by email.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Terry? Or Commissioner Mundo? Sorry.
So I guess I'm really confused because one of my jobs with probation was as an assistant to the school-based program, actually one of the first. And I'm really confused that they stopped collecting data because there is a lot of data collected or was collected. And so if there's anything you need, please contact me because perhaps we can bring somebody in from school base and just let them present their program and let you all get on that stand and ask your questions. Because it shouldn't be that difficult to tell us how many are assigned, how many youth they each supervise, and which schools they are at. None of those items or issues compromise the youth at all. It's just a pragmatic questions. So, yeah, I'm really confused because I know they collect the data. Every unit in probation collects data. If they stop collecting data, how do they monitor what they do? So I'm confused.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Commissioner Terry? Oh, sorry. Yes, Commissioner Terry.
Is it possible to get follow-up on the caller who raised a really good question about the weapons and how that's handled? So what's our options for follow-up? We could certainly agendize another item, an item to be heard later, or you could instruct me to ask a question. He did say that. He did say that. So I think you could instruct me to ask a specific question of the department, and as long as there's consensus with your peers, I can ask that question and share it with you in the public.
Well, I was gonna say, sharing it with the public, yeah, maybe we can put it in, and if no action needs to be taken, I don't think it needs to be agendized, but if you just want to know, you can ask Mr. Strong yourself. I think any of us are, I have gotten good responses.
Yeah, I can do
people
that.
have reached
Yeah.
out on my own, one-on-one to staff.
Okay, I put my script away, but I think the next is a motion to adjourn. Unless there's other comments. Yes, sorry, Commissioner.
So
Gomez.
sorry, I know
That's
everybody's like,
okay.
"What are we talking about?" Do we know probation's data collection platform? Because I know like at where my job, we use Salesforce and we've been collecting data for over 5 years now, like, and everything, so it cannot be disputed. But I'm wondering if they have an actual platform of collection where everything is integrated and collected and qualitative and quantitative.
That's a great question, and also something we could ask for them to report on. I know the answers, and so does Sarah, to some of those questions, like on the juvenile side, for example, but I think it's a question we should ask the department to come and tell us what their data systems are.
All right, thank you, that's it.
Anything else? Yes? What? Yes, okay. Motion to adjourn? I'll make the motion. All right. Do we have to vote? Voice vote? Oh, any objections? None. Okay, be well, everyone. Get home safe. Thank you for being here.
That you stayed here all day too with us. Thank you so much.